that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and like I kind of inferred, I'm not sure if I will be doing a Season 3 video, because I just don't know what else there is to say, you know? But yeah, so evidently I lied a little bit in the last video, but that's okay because, I didn't lie completely. I mean, outside of the episode reviews, it's true, I don't really have that much more to say about this show, like structure-wise, you know, what actually fundamentally makes it bad. Really, we just need to focus on the episode reviews themselves at this point. But that's not to say that I don't have additional things to say. I'm just going to use the episode reviews as basically a conduit to get those points across instead of dedicating space for that in the video. Also, I do have some additional material at the end for those of you who love extra stuff, extra content. I'm putting that at the end. I would recommend you watch it even if you don't like extra content because it's going to be good, I promise. Okay, but if you don't watch it, that's not going to offend me. I made it for myself, really. This is just me. This is all for me. So, coming into this season, my expectations were at an all-time low. Last season, I had a little bit of hope based on the trailer. This time around, basically non-existent. I didn't really have any expectations one way or the other. Like, there was no reason for me to think that this season was going to be any better than the last one, but also nothing that really pointed to this one being any worse. There was the inkling of hope that maybe something good would come out of Carly and Freddie's relationship, and I'm not going to say what happens. You'll see when we get there. But now that we have all this introductory material out of the way, we can go ahead and jump into the actual episode reviews, and it's basically going to be just a steamroll from episode 1 to episode 10. So strap in because it's gonna be non-stop. But first and foremost, let's take a look at the season 2 finale recap, so that way we get a little refresher on what was going down. In the season 2 finale, it's Freddie's birthday party, and essentially Pearl and Carly are both trying to plan the party for him. This ultimately results in Pearl believing that Carly seems to know more about Freddie than she does, which, you know, is true. Carly has known Freddie forever. But when Pearl walks back in and overhears a part of the conversation where Freddie says that Pearl will never know him as well as Carly does, Pearl says that this is true, and it seems like Carly and Freddie are in love with each other. And thus we ended season 2 on a cliffhanger of both Freddie and Pearl's relationship and that of Carly and Freddie's. And Season 3, Episode 1 is titled I Buckled. It begins with a very frustrating cold opening because I almost immediately knew where this was going. By the time that I decided to sit down and watch the first episode of the season, the first 3 episodes were already out, and I had been keeping an eye on the iCarly subreddit. And from what I saw, it seemed like most people thought that the first couple episodes were actually an improvement on the previous 2 seasons. But if this cold opening is anything to go by, we're in for a rough time. The cold opening is essentially the writers trying to bait the viewers into thinking that maybe Freddie is about to propose to Carly for some reason. And I would hope that anyone who has ever watched any TV show prior to watching iCarly could see this coming a mile away. However, what I don't think anyone could see coming from a mile away was who exactly the proposal was for. So go ahead, guess which 2 characters in the iCarly universe are about to become engaged. I'll give you a second. Wrong. The answer is Mrs. Benson and Lubert. I'm sorry, but where did this come from? Okay, I'll give you that one. They did make out in Season 2, Episode 2, but we haven't seen them interact on screen together since that very moment. I'm not necessarily against events happening off screen, but I just don't understand why this was needed at all. Were there really any fans out there clamoring to see these 2 get together? The writers do not count. Anyway, get ready to see more of these 2 because this relationship is going to serve as a somewhat background plot for the remainder of the season. Yay. Anyway, after the proposal, Pearl walks in, and it's very clear that there's still some unresolved tension between Pearl and Carly. All of this is further elaborated on after the theme song, where we go back and forth between Carly and Harper talking, and then Freddie and Spencer talking. Here we learn that it's been 3 weeks since Carly and Freddie have talked to each other, with Freddie having gone on a 3-week road trip with Pearl, and Carly also makes it pretty clear that she has feelings for Freddie, even if she is unwilling to admit it to anyone. And in the middle of these scenes, this line of dialogue happens.
I got a text 2 days later. Hit the open road with my lady. Talk soon. Stock of wheat emoji.
A perfect text.
Stalk of wheat means impotence.
What are you talking about? Is this real? Because I have never heard of this before in my life. I tried Google searching this to see if this was just something that I'd never heard of, and I actually couldn't find any information about this. The only thing that I could find when searching for this is that it's apparently used sometimes in discussions about race as a way to prevent racists from coming and fighting them, which, first of all, that doesn't even make any sense. Why not just say white? White has way more applications than a stock of wheat emoji. That's just way easier for someone to search and find specific comments about. Who is tweeting the stock of wheat emoji? And then at the end of all of these scenes, this really bizarre cut happens that I just have to show you.
Oh, I need a new project. A real one.
I genuinely thought that there might be something wrong on my end. Granted, it's not the weirdest thing, and once I watched it enough times, I got my head around what was happening there, but still, it was kind of bizarre and confusing. Meanwhile, back at the Benson household, Millicent is buttering up Mrs. Benson and Lubert in an attempt to try and get them to choose her as the maid of honor in the wedding. Millicent has discovered that Mrs. Benson is considering Danica as the maid of honor and not Millicent. And Millicent has found this information out because she hacked into Mrs. Benson's email. Millicent is telling all of this to Freddie, who in return has no reaction to learning that his daughter has hacked into his mom's email. Wow, what a truly great father Freddie is. Meanwhile, at Shea What, Carly is meeting with Josh Peck to discuss some potential new options for projects. And unfortunately, in the middle of this dialogue, Josh Peck went down a few pegs in terms of my favorite characters in this show.
Bully me, queen.
I didn't like that.
A lot.
Yeah,
that was terrible.
That I think I physically cringed. And by the way, that clip that you just saw is taken from the Let's Watch series that I did of every single episode in Season 3 of iCarly. I'll be including clips like that one throughout this video, but you can view the full Let's Watch videos for each episode on my Patreon, link in the description. So the big project that Josh Peck is pitching Carly is a reality show, and they're trying to figure out what the hook for it will be. Josh Peck ultimately decides that the hook for the show will be a love triangle between Carly, Freddie, and Pearl. Carly, on the other hand, denies that there is anything going on between her and Freddie, but this doesn't dissuade Josh Peck, and they begin shooting the show. Sonny Johnson shows up at the Shea apartment for the reality show shoot, and luckily for the audience, she spouts out about every personality trait and everything that we've seen her do on the show in case you've forgotten who her character is, which I surely would have had I not already looked up information about this character because I completely forgot they existed in the show while I was working on the Season 2 video. So Josh Peck is back. And Hannah Stocking is back, which I honestly don't know who that is. Who's Sonny Johnson? Oh, this character, they're bringing back this character? Spencer, feeling a little upset that he's being left out of this project, decides to become the host of the show even though it was not asked of him, and Josh Peck reiterates that there is no need for a host on the show. And following this, Carly says this incredible line of dialogue.
We got a sister, we got my literal ponytail, we got an unqualified white male host.
And sure, okay, this is a fair criticism to have of the TV host job. It is pretty much dominated by white males. But this is just an odd line of dialogue coming from Carly because she's talking about her own brother. The B-plot continues at the Benson household, and it's just a snooze fest. I don't even want to bother talking about it. Spencer begins his role as host of the show by referencing a bunch of different reality shows, and this actually released the most dopamine in my brain out of any of these episodes so far, so good job. Pearl and Freddie show up, and Josh Peck tells them all that he has a fun activity planned. It cuts downstairs, and this is happening. I don't really know why this is happening. I don't know if it's just supposed to be funny on its own. I actually just can't really discern what the plot of this episode is or why I should care about anything that's going on. The whole point of this episode seems to just be hammering in the point that Carly does in fact still have feelings for Freddie, but they don't really do much with that besides just putting her in awkward situations and just making her say, oh, I don't actually like Freddie. I don't like Freddie. I actually don't like Freddie. Wow, Pearl is really good at this, but Carly isn't. Isn't this funny? Let's press the laugh track button 3 or maybe even 5 times.
Watch this.
That was nowhere near close enough to warrant that many laugh tracks. Nothing in this show is funny enough to warrant 4 consecutive laugh tracks. I'm going to briefly go back to the B-plot here that I said that I was going to no longer talk about, just to talk about this one joke here that I think is kind of indicative of the horrible humor that the iCarly writing staff loves to go for.
Grandma B officially chose her maid of honor. And it's Danica from book club with the beret.
What is funny about this? Genuinely asking, is it because she said it multiple times now? Is that what the joke is? Or is there something about wearing a beret that's just inherently funny that I'm missing here? Anyway, I think that these types of jokes that the iCarly writers love to do so much can be best described as jokes that are basically near impossible to retell and be funny. Not to mention that they are already unfunny to me, but if you're someone that laughs at these jokes, I don't think you can retell them and make someone laugh. And I'm talking about even someone who typically finds these sorts of jokes funny. At Carly's apartment, Freddy comes over and they talk about everything that's been going on between them, and Freddy gets the world's loudest notification. And in this shot, it seems that the boom operator was on lunch break or something because Freddy's laugh sounds like it's coming from the other room.
Pearl T. Barnum over here.
You know, it's always great to see how much care, love, and thought is put into this show. You can just feel it from the writers, to the directors, to the camera operators, to the boom operators. You know, everyone is just really trying their hardest on this show, and you love to see it. And the episode ends with Carly and Spencer watching the trailer for the reality TV show that they shot, which includes shots that were not filmed as a part of the reality TV show, and were taken directly from the episode that we as an audience had just watched. Great stuff.
Every network passed.
That makes sense.
Oh, even Paramount Plus? Seem pretty desperate for content. Overall, I'd say that this episode is definitely below average, but it isn't really terrible. My biggest complaint with the episode is that it just didn't really feel like the plot was going anywhere, both in the A plot and B plot. And it also seemed like they were just trying to cram in as many side characters as possible, with Mrs. Benson, Lubert, Josh Peck, Pearl, and Sunny all making appearances. But at the very least, they do set up the premise for the season, that being the exploration of Freddy and Carly's relationship. Episode 2 is titled I Like Your Shoes and begins with Carly feeling depressed, fully admitting to herself and Harper that she wants Freddy. Harper then gets into a dialogue with Carly about dating apps, but for some reason they are calling them love applications. I don't know if this is supposed to be a joke or something. I don't really understand why they're doing this. Carly says that she hasn't been using dating apps, love applications, because she's heard that they have viruses on them. And I only mention this because when Freddy and Pearl show up, Freddy makes the same comment about love applications having viruses on them, implying that Freddy has been telling this to Carly to make her avoid joining any love applications. Also, Harper has a thing going on this episode, but it's so minuscule and inconsequential that not even the iCarly wiki page bothered writing more than one sentence about it. So here it is, Harper's full C plot in one sentence. Meanwhile, Harper is approached by an old enemy from high school who once helped designing an outfit for the Net Gala, but they still can't get along, so try to be somewhat friendly with each other, and they end up kissing. Thank you, iCarly wiki. Spencer also shows up at the apartment to announce his B plot. After receiving a review stating that Spencer's out of touch with the working man, Spencer becomes determined to show them that he is in fact in touch, which is just not really a problem. I don't understand why he cares about this critique at all. He's never let this affect him before. I mean, he's lived in a studio apartment despite him being an unsuccessful artist in the original series. Also, basically every artist that has ever existed is out of touch, so that's not even a good critique. Later at Shea What, Carly is preparing to go on a date with someone that she met on one of the love applications. And boy, do I have good news for you if you're rolling on the floor laughing over love applications, because they're doing it again, but this time they're saying intercourse sex. That's right, not intercourse, not sex, intercourse sex. And they do it many times. It's very funny.
Harper, I'm not gonna have intercourse sex with some scrap off the internet.
Also, Carly's date is my favorite character in this entire show now.
Oh, that's right. You said you were a comedian. Tell me another joke. Now that I'm ready for it.
Meanwhile, Spencer comes up with a new idea to make himself appeal more to the working man by removing himself from the 1%. He proposes that he will do this by giving away and spending as much of his money as possible. Freddy is immediately intrigued by this and tells him that he has a lot of new ideas that Spencer could invest in. And this only led me to wonder, hey, what happened to Kevin? We have not seen that at all this season. Is that even still a thing? This, however, does make Spencer realize that he should just invest in a terrible business. Freddy shows up to Shea What and has this exchange with Carly, which was so unbearable that I will just play the entire thing for you here.
What happened to you this morning? I thought we were gonna shoot Taco Tina doing her taco taxes. She's trying to claim guac as a dependent.
Sorry, no time to stop. We're almost up to the brown yarn crown on Lady Liberty. Tomorrow we start knitting the huddled masses yarning to breathe free.
Well, it seems like you made a little time to pick up some froyo for you and your fro-ho.
Yeah, little mint chip for me and my little mint chippy.
Back at Spencer's apartment, Harper is doing her C-plot and Spencer comes out, and this is basically the only reason why I'm talking about this. Because it was at this moment that I realized that Spencer was in fact my favorite character in this show and has always been.
Spencer, you mean John, most average name in the US of A!
Sorry to the guy who I previously said was my favorite character in the iCarly universe. That was not true. I personally think that Jerry Trainor has what it takes to play the lead in an Uncut Gems type movie. Make it happen. Later, we find everyone at the axe throwing club that Spencer has bought to lose money, and it's here that the main plot of the episode really starts to heat up. Carly says that she is going to go over to Pearl and tell her that she likes her shoes, and Harper immediately tells Carly that this would be a bad idea, and then proceeds to explain what it even means. Which is helpful since I was completely unaware of what it meant. This is just yet another situation in which I am left confused as to whether this is a reference to something real that I just haven't heard of, or it's something that the writers have made up because they think it is funny for whatever reason. So Carly does go over and tell Pearl that she loves her shoes, and then Freddy tells Troy that he likes his shoes, causing Pearl to angrily throw the axe past everyone. Pearl then verbally confronts both Freddy and Carly about this unresolved dynamic that they have, and then verbally assaults every single person in the room, once again making me think that Pearl is actually my favorite character in this show.
You suck. And you suck. You definitely suck. And you're just mean.
Pearl then leaves the room in the arms of Carly's date, Troy, and that is basically the end of Pearl and Freddy's relationship. Carly responds to Freddy getting broken up by suggesting that he will at least now have more time for iCarly, and Freddy actually has a reasonable reaction to this, which is, surprising coming from the iCarly writers.
I just got dumped by my girlfriend of a year, and you're thinking about how it helps you? Wow.
Also, for most of the scene, I was distracted by this man in the background who was caressing the cardboard cutout. Very cool. Also, Harper and Tinsley kiss. I don't know if this is going to be important or not later on, but, here's this information.
Hey!
The guy in the back turn around when they kiss. And if this is going to turn into a full-fledged relationship that'll last for, maybe 3 episodes maximum, it's certainly going to be one of the most positive.
You were such a bitch.
Well, guess what? I still am.
Well, guess what? So am I.
Later in the evening, Carly shows up at the Benson household to offer Freddy an apology in the form of frozen yogurt. Freddy and Carly then have a conversation, recognizing that maybe their relationship is actually harmful to those around them, recognizing that the relationship got in the way of Pearl's personal feelings and they actually did hurt her. And then after this, the episode pretty much just ends. This episode was about on par with the previous episode, maybe slightly better, and I can't really say that I found any of the plots in this episode to be engaging, but I do appreciate that the writers actually had the characters take accountability for some of their actions for once. It's kind of jarring after 2 seasons where the characters are all just kind of being bad people, but then again, I honestly can't say that I think that any of the characters in the show are ever going to substantially change, and can they please find some more interesting plots for Harper to participate in, because so far, a lot of her stuff has just been dating, and it's reminding me a lot of season 1. I don't really know what type of plots I'd like to see Harper get into, but please, just anything besides dating. We all know that these side relationships aren't going anywhere and that these characters that they're dating are just disposable. So just save the audience the pain and don't even bother doing them in the first place. Episode 3 is titled I Make New Memories, and believe it or not, it actually starts out with an iCarly broadcast. And even though the subject of this livestream is inconsequential to the rest of the episode, I would like to, as always, point out the view count because it just absolutely skyrockets. And then it abruptly ends, prompting me to ask the age-old question, what is this content that they're actually producing? In the original iCarly series, whenever they would end the broadcast, they would at least do an outro of some sort, but here they just always completely end it with no warning. And almost every time they showed the broadcast, it seems like what we're seeing at the beginning of each time is the actual start of the broadcast because the viewer count is always usually pretty low and it just kind of exponentially increases from there. I know I've already gone over this many times before, but I will not rest until I learn the logistics of the iCarly broadcast in this reboot. So the broadcast ends, and then we immediately find out that Spencer has just been here this whole time, apparently working on a sculpture in the background of this iCarly broadcast. And what is this sculpture? Well, it's an arch comprised of hard drives, and when Spencer plugs it in, disaster strikes. But to make matters worse, Carly has realized that Spencer has used one of her hard drives that contains photos from the last 15 years of her life, and it is now ruined. And it was also at this moment that I accurately predicted the entire plot for the remainder of the episode. They're gonna recreate memories and they're gonna kiss because that's a moment, and then that's how they're gonna get together. And unfortunately, this will not be the last time that I accurately predict an entire episode. Meanwhile, at Harper's apartment, Millicent walks in and Harper asks her why she didn't knock, which is an odd question considering no one on this show ever knocks before entering anyone's apartment. Millicent explains that there is a problem, and we then cut to the Benson apartment where Mrs. Benson is trying on her wedding dress. And so Harper agrees to create a new dress for her wedding. Meanwhile, at Spencer's apartment, Carly is still held up by her feelings towards Freddie. And more importantly, she solicits Spencer to help her decide which memories are worth recreating. This launches us into a montage where we see a bunch of memories get recreated, and then suddenly in the middle of the montage, we also see Harper helping Mrs. Benson with her wedding dress as if this had any relation to what we were just seeing. One of the final memories that we see them try to recreate is at the Groovy Smoothie where Carly is picking up trash, which I assume was a part of a job that she had at one point. I don't know, maybe it was in an episode and I just forgot. But it's also here at the Groovy Smoothie that the song that Carly and Freddie danced to in the original show starts playing, and Freddie decides this is a good opportunity for them to slow dance to recapture this moment as well. They begin slow dancing, but before anything can happen, Spencer abruptly comes out banging two podlets together, yelling no, 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 no. I don't really know why he is doing this, but this is what he does, and then the episode cuts to what would be a commercial break. At Carly's apartment, Carly is reflecting on the slow dance and decides that this is her opportunity to push further into making a relationship with Freddie work. Carly decides that she is going to have Spencer help her recreate the memory of Freddie visiting her in Italy. Back at the Benson apartment, Mrs. Benson has decided that she will be sticking with the naughty girl dress that Harper so desperately wants her to get rid of. However, this plot is quickly resolved when Freddie comes out and Mrs. Benson claims that the son of the bride cannot see the wedding dress before the day of the wedding. Back at Spencer's apartment, it has been set up to recreate that aforementioned Italian dinner, but things quickly go wrong when Freddie shows up and realizes what is happening. You see, it's here that we actually get some pretty great lore dumping that fills us in on the events that took place after the original show's finale aired, but before the revival. It turns out that the night of this Italian dinner was the worst night of Freddie's life. After being kissed by Carly in the finale episode of the original show, Carly constantly called Freddie while she was in Italy out of loneliness. It was at this point that Freddie planned to fly to Italy and planned this dinner date to ask Carly if she would be his girlfriend. But when they asked an Italian man to take their picture and he commented that they were a lovely couple, Carly laughed and said that they were just friends, which completely destroyed Freddie. And during the dinner, Freddie lied about having a family emergency and went and slept at the airport until he could get a flight home. And then this exchange happens.
Freddie, I'm sorry, but I did not string you along.
You kissed me. And then a month later, you laughed at the idea of us being a couple. That's not fair.
No, it's not fair that you made me the bad guy for all these years just because I didn't like you back.
If you didn't like me, why did you kiss me?
To give us closure.
Closure? Is she stupid? How is this closure? This honestly might single-handedly be one of the most insane things any character in this TV show has ever said. How else was Freddy supposed to interpret that? You kissed him on the mouth. With your lips. Was he supposed to walk away from that and just think, oh yeah, that was an awesome friendship mouth-to-mouth kiss? Because that's certainly not how I interpreted it as a 13-year-old watching that finale. Also, before we leave this section of the episode, I would like to point out that Spencer simply does not give a shit about what's going on here. He very graciously interrupts this serious scene with a comedic remark.
House of Gucci.
The next day at Carly and Harper's apartment, the two talk, and Carly comes to the realization that maybe Freddy just doesn't realize that Carly does love him. Harper tells Carly that she should just tell Freddy the way she feels, but Carly's concerned that maybe Freddy won't reciprocate, which is honestly just an insane thing for her to believe at this point, considering Freddy just told her the other night that he was going to ask her to be his girlfriend. Harper has now designed a new wedding dress for Mrs. Benson, and this officially concludes the B-plot, so big round of applause from me for getting through that. At Spencer's apartment, we learn that Freddy didn't get a whole lot of sleep the previous night, as he was up thinking about the night that Carly had planned and how he had ruined it. And I must give credit where it's due and show this moment that I genuinely chuckled at.
God, Carly planned this beautiful moment.
Technically, Spencer did most of the work.
And then we have this exchange with Freddy and Spencer, and I am including it because Freddy has an absolutely legendary reaction to this information.
She's worried you don't want to be friends at all.
What? I have to see her. Is she home?
She left a note for you up in the studio.
What is this reaction? He's acting like he thinks that Carly's upstairs about to kill herself or something. I mean, look at his face. This is the face of a man who thinks his friend is about to die. So Freddy goes upstairs and discovers that Carly has in fact not killed herself and has set up an arch with photos of memories. So astute fans of stories may remember that the driving force for this episode's plot was the fact that Carly's hard drive, which contained all of these photos, was completely fried at the beginning of the episode. Thankfully, the iCarly writers thought about those with zero attention span and had this part of the plot resolved off screen, as Gizmo, Sako's brother or friend or something like that, has fixed the hard drive for her. You know, I think the iCarly writers should be applauded here because they're truly innovating in the field of plot development and plot resolution, because I think that, you know, it's actually a good thing when plots get resolved off screen and we don't actually get to see it happen. I would also like to take a moment to allow myself from the past to vent about these photos that can be seen in the background on this photo arch. Where are these pictures from? Where is that picture of Freddy on the right? Who took that? Who took that picture?
That was the day that you made
Who took the bottom picture? It's every single character's in that photo. Who took it?
That's from like 2 seconds ago. Look, that's from like last episode.
That is.
Remember that like 2 days ago?
So they yap on about the relationship and what they mean for each other and whatever, you know, like, oh, what if the relationship doesn't work out? Are we gonna be friends still? And they're like, yeah, whatever. And then they kiss. And then they go in for seconds, and I'll just play this clip as is because, I mean, I'll give you a warning. It's very nauseating. I would not recommend you watch this if you're queasy, you know, if you get frightened easily. This is not going to be good for you. There's your warning. Here we go.
Ooh, let's do that again.
In 5, 4.
The episode ends in the iCarly studio, and for whatever reason, Freddy's mom is here, and this got me thinking. She's been in every single episode so far this season, and she's been in almost every scene. I'm not going to sit here and do the calculations myself, but if someone were to tell me that Mrs. Benson had more screen time this season than Millicent, I would believe you, because that's definitely what it seems like at this point. Am I mad about that? Not necessarily. It just feels a little bit out of place, especially considering the lack of her involvement in the previous 2 seasons. I'm not really sure what prompted them to kind of feature her more prominently this season, but it's certainly a decision. I think that this might be one of the weaker episodes of the first 3, and it just kind of left me confused as to why the first 3 episodes got such a positive reception. I think the more obvious explanation as to why people like these first 3 episodes so much is that they only serve to get Freddy and Carly together. And I guess I can't blame them for that. except for the fact that I think they are extremely weak story-wise. Please, I am begging you guys, give me one episode of this show where the plot resolves in a way that makes logical sense, or at the very least, it resolves on screen. Episode 4 is titled I Go Public, and it is the greatest episode in the entire reboot series, at least so far. The episode begins in the iCarly studio as Carly and Freddy are preparing for an iCarly broadcast, and while they're making these preparations, they are kind of going back and forth at each other, reveling in the fact that they are now officially a couple. Freddy then makes this comment,
Can't wait to tell the world.
and Carly's response is pretty indicative that she's not really ready to tell everyone about their relationship just yet. Freddy, on the other hand, seems to lack the ability to gather context clues or just really read anyone's emotions, because during the iCarly broadcast, Freddy just keeps prodding at Carly to announce them as a couple, despite the fact that she's making it pretty obvious that she's not ready to do that. So clueless Benson keeps pushing her.
Hey, here's a question from a totally real viewer. Are there any recent intimate developments in your personal life that you would like to share?
I've got to be honest, the more times I watch this clip, the less happy I am about this relationship. I'm just saying, don't be surprised in a future episode when it's revealed that Freddy has been domestically abusing Carly. So anyway, after Freddy threatens Carly, Carly stands up and the camera angle changes despite there only being one camera. But instead of Carly doing what Freddy demanded of her and reveal the relationship status, she decides to instead do a sponsored ad read. And it's also here that I have to give props to the editors because they had the view count absolutely tank during this segment. Great work, editors. More stuff like this, please. After the broadcast is over, Freddy once again confronts Carly about why she's so hesitant to announce the relationship to the public. Carly makes up the excuse that she didn't want to do it during the ad read, but Freddy reads into this thinking that she instead wants to plan a big reveal. It's obvious that this is not what Carly wants, and Carly just kind of goes along with it. Later at Shea What, we're introduced to the episode's side plot, which is honestly one of the only bad parts about this episode. Spencer reveals to everyone that he has acquired an arcade game from Sacco, and it's a giant possum robot game, and it's incredibly obvious that there's just a human being in there. Like, could they not find one of those YouTubers from 2013 that dance like robots to dubstep music? I mean, come on.
Just like a Sunday.
Anyway, Millicent starts playing the game, which just seems to consist of her doing various handshakes with this possum. Carly and Harper are also having a conversation at the same time where Carly is talking about how she is not ready to tell everyone about her and Freddy's relationship. And this whole problem could be solved by, I don't know, her just telling Freddy this exact information. I mean, realistically, what is it that is preventing Carly from just telling Freddy? What's Freddy going to do if she does tell him? Beat her up? Because that seems to be the only logical line we can follow here. It was also during this conversation that Connor and I were able to once again predict the entire episode.
It's just me and Freddie and not the whole internet with their comments that
Why don't you say that to him?
actually sarcastic.
Good thing you don't live.
Why don't you say that to him when he asks?
Come on.
Oh great, it's a
You can't keep
conflict
your
that came
relationship
about
hidden
because...
forever.
Can I?
She
Someone
simply
just
didn't
didn't
want to
say
say
it.
anything.
Yeah, someone didn't say a particular sentence.
Yeah. A very simple and understandable explanation.
Yeah, and it'll be resolved when she says it in 20 minutes. Okay, yeah, she'll either say it in 20 minutes, or more likely, it'll be revealed anyway through some accidental funny means, and she'll be okay with it anyway.
Another thing that I need to point out here is that Harper brings up Freddy's fedoras. And if you're sitting there in your brown armchair, scratching your head, trying to recall Freddy's iconic fedora that he has worn every episode, do not worry. Freddy, at least to my knowledge, has never been a prominent donner of the fedora, yet for whatever reason, this is a fact about Freddy that is brought up numerous times in this episode. Is it relevant to the plot at all? No. Is it brought up ever again outside of this episode? No. So that should tell you all you need to know about the writing on this show. Back to the conversation, Carly decides to entice Freddy to keep the relationship private by planning a picnic date on the rooftop of their apartment building. Now, how will this keep him from wanting to take things public? I have no idea. Over at the bar, Freddy and Spencer are talking and the fedoras are once again brought up.
I need your help. Lose the fedoras.
We haven't even seen Freddy wear this so-called beloved fedora a single time. What are they talking about? So Freddy is telling Spencer that he wants the relationship announcement to be special, and Spencer agrees to help him. At Spencer's apartment, Spencer tells Freddy that he should use drones to announce their relationship. This sounds like an incredible idea to Freddy, who has the following to say.
That does sound romantic. It's like a PowerPoint presentation in the sky.
No, it isn't.
And honestly, I only included that clip because I thought Spencer's response was actually funny. Back at Shea What, Harper and Millicent are still playing this possum game, and apparently it has GPT-4 or something installed in its system because it seems to be having fully coherent conversations with them. And allegedly it has successfully gotten Millicent to break up with her boyfriend Derek.
I'm so glad you took my advice and broke up with Derek.
Why did they even bother making them a couple in the first place if he was never going to make another appearance on the show? The writers are practically begging us to not give a shit about these characters' relationships. Anyway, Carly comes by and questions Harper as to why she's still playing this children's game. Harper then begins questioning that same thing herself, and the possum responds with this.
If you leave, I might get angry.
And you don't want to see me angry.
And, yeah, I really don't like this side plot. It's not interesting, it's not funny, and worst of all, very predictable. I am going to try and spend as little time as possible talking about this side plot, so let's just move on. At Spencer's apartment, Carly walks in, and holy cow, I love Walmart Plus! Walmart Plus has everything you could ever need! I love Walmart Plus! I love Walmart Plus! I love Walmart Plus! I love Walmart Plus! And when Carly presses Spencer about what's going on, he cracks and tells her that Freddy has planned a drone show to announce their relationship. This understandably upsets Carly, and she runs to the rooftop to try and shut it all down. But honestly, the drone show should be the least of her concerns. It's probably poorly optimized in terms of viewing angles. I mean, the message is optimized to be best seen from the rooftop that Carly and Freddy would be viewing it from. So the text announcing the relationship would likely be illegible to anyone that is not standing on a rooftop at that very moment, which should be a majority of the people who live in Seattle. Up on the rooftop, Freddy has begun live streaming, and he is wearing his iconic fedora. And I know, I should have given you a bit of a warning, a bit of a heads up that Freddy's iconic fedora was about to be seen because, let's face it, it's a pretty damn cool look. Several people watching the video are probably fainting right now as I speak, and frankly, that's understandable. Anyway, Carly comes up onto the rooftop and kicks the chair that is holding the door open. And at this point, it was pretty obvious to me at least that this is going to lock them up on the roof. Because why else would that chair have been there propping the door open? It's so obvious. It's obvious, Carly. Come on. Carly then takes what I'm assuming is like a fireman's axe off the side of the stairwell entrance thing and begins to destroy the transmitter. After Carly has finished decimating the transmitter, she finally explains to Freddy that she doesn't really want a big reveal of their relationship. Which, you know, she could have told him that at any point within the last, day or two. She then says that she had planned a picnic for him and she was going to go and get it, but then when she tries to open the door to go back down off the roof, she realizes that she has locked them up there. Freddy then declares that they are trapped up on the roof, and I hate to be this person, but I have to point it out. They have their phones. They literally have their phones. Simply call Spencer. Or 911 for that matter. Call someone, anyone.
What about your phone in your back pocket? It's right there. Call Spencer.
Alternatively, if their phones do not work for whatever reason, and there's really no reason for their phones to not work, Carly could simply pick up the fireman's axe that she used to destroy the transmitter moments earlier to knock down this door. It certainly looks like it's made out of wood. I think the axe could break through it. Might as well give that a try before giving up completely. Spencer goes to Shea What, where he finds Millicent and Harper hiding behind the counter, completely afraid of this possum arcade game. Apparently, it just continued to escalate its threats of violence, and they have become terrified of the thing. When Spencer goes to power it down, it actually picks him up off of the floor. And then when Harper goes to power it off, it also attacks her. And then Millicent comes over and actually does power it off, and that's the end of it. That's the side plot. It's done. we can move on back to the main show. Carly and Freddy are still trapped on this rooftop, and they have decided that their best way to get off the roof is just by screaming, I guess. No. Use your phone!
You're literally live streaming on a phone. Like, oh, that's an actual camera.
Oh, the one time he uses a real camera. And I do have some unfortunate news for the hashtag Fedora Freddy Nation out there. You might want to avert your eyes because Freddy's fedora does indeed leave his head and dives off of the rooftop. We do not see this fedora ever again. Carly and Freddy sit down, and Carly explains why she didn't want to go public with their relationship yet, explaining that she just did not enjoy what happened when Bo broke up with her on the live stream in Season 1. Freddy says I love you to Carly, and then receives a text message from his mom. The contents of the text message are irrelevant. It basically just serves to remind Freddy that he started the live stream. But this begs the question, if Freddy's mom is watching the live stream, how has she not called 911 or personally shown up to save the day here? Surely she saw that Freddy and Carly were yelling for help and, were trapped on this rooftop. Or has Mrs. Benson's primary character trait been erased? After Freddy realizes that the live stream is still on, he rushes to go and turn it off as if that really matters at this point. And then basically as soon as the camera is turned off, Carly reads some comments of people that are basically just supporting the relationship, and she now decides that she wants the world to know about the relationship. Well, I have good news for you, Carly. The world already does know. You just live streamed it to 50,000 people. Nevertheless, Carly turns the live stream back on and kisses Freddy. And you know how much I love checking out the view counts, so we've got to make note of this. Before the live stream was turned off by Freddy, they hit 50,000 viewers. When it was turned back on, miraculously, all 50,000 people were still there. That's right, not a single one of the 50,000 people decided to turn off their computer or go to a different website after the live stream ended. 50,000 people just sat and stared at a black screen, patiently waiting, for some reason, awaiting a live stream to come back that had really no reason to come back. They had zero expectation that they would resume the live stream. I don't know why they did it. And while Freddy and Carly were kissing passionately, the drone show began overhead. And honestly, the following is probably one of the funniest things that has ever come out of this reboot series, and I don't really expect it to be overtaken, so I will just show you the entire clip right here.
I guess destroying the transmitter didn't work.
Oh, they're making some kind of picture.
Yeah, they're spelling out Freddy for Evie with a beating heart.
Doesn't really look like a heart. It's kind of weird. It looks more like a microphone.
Yeah, or a horizontal lighthouse. I think I know what it is. It's a...
Oh no, it's definitely not that. Oh yeah, I see it now.
The drones must have gone back to their default formation.
But why would it be that?
Well, because apparently Spencer decided to test the drones by making a huge...
Aw, damn! My lighthouse is on its side!
I'll be honest, I did not really expect them to go as far as they did with that joke, but they did, and I truly applaud them for doing it. Great work there. The show ends with Harper and Spencer meeting Carly and Freddy on the rooftop, rescuing them, and that's in quotes, because Millicent quickly comes up and takes the chair, trapping them on the roof yet again. The episode ends, so we can just assume that they all stayed up there and died, and this is actually the canonical ending of iCarly. All episodes that come after this one are actually just a part of a dream sequence. Alright, so despite a lot of my complaining in this episode review, this is undoubtedly the best episode of the iCarly reboot. Yes, there are a lot of problems with the episode still, but I think I have to give credit where it's due, and it's due here. This is a great episode of iCarly. The side plot was almost unbearable, and the main plot certainly had its own issues, but there were a lot of great jokes that definitely landed and made me chuckle. I've probably said this in the past, but I'll say it again if so. There are plenty of TV shows out there where I can look past horrible and incoherent plots if the jokes are good enough. And this episode of iCarly almost got it there. And even on the plot side, I will say that both the plots did resolve themselves by the end. It wasn't something that happened off screen or something that was very sudden. it was kind of, a story. And I think credit has to be mostly given to the writer of this episode, David Malkoff. I looked through the IMDb pages for all of the writers who have written for iCarly, and while some of them have undoubtedly written for shows that are widely acclaimed, David Malkoff's resume here just stands above the rest in ways that you might not expect. This guy was essentially a student of the Dan Schneider universe. He wrote one episode of Victorious and was a staff writer for the entirety of Sam and Cat. Additionally, he wrote or co-wrote 57 episodes of the show Henry Danger, which was created by Dan Schneider. I mean, if the iCarly reboot couldn't get any of the original iCarly writers to come back and write some more for them, this is probably the best that we could get. There's just undoubtedly this charm that Dan Schneider brought to all of the shows that he made and worked on when he was at Nickelodeon. If you watch any of the shows that Dan made while he was at Nickelodeon, they all have that kind of same vibe, that same charm. And I think Dan was able to pass that on to his writers. Or at the very least, Dan was incredibly good at picking writers who were accustomed to his style or were easily adaptable to his style. Now, you can argue that a lot of that had been lost by the time you get to his shows like Sam and Cat and Henry Danger, I suppose. I have not watched that show, but it's certainly not anything like Drake and Josh. But even still, I think that David Malkoff is able to deliver us a little nugget of that whimsy and charm that Dan Schneider brought to his shows. However, I am devastated to report that this is the one and only episode of iCarly that he wrote. And that is basically all I have to say about this episode. And to David Malkoff, I wish you nothing but the best in your future writing endeavors. Episode 5 is titled I Faked It and begins in Spencer's apartment where we see him on a video call with Carly. The only problem is that Carly walks into the apartment during this, and it's very clear that this is not the real Carly on the video call. After this reveal, we immediately go into the theme song, which might make this the shortest cold open in sitcom history. And if I were on the iCarly team, I would be frantically locating the email for the Guinness World Records because this might be the only award this show can feasibly win. After the theme song, Freddie comes into the apartment and we get another glimpse at how bad of a parent Freddie actually is. We learn that Freddie has neglected to go and pick Millicent up from school just so he can be at the apartment and explain deepfakes to Spencer and Carly. But whatever, Millicent seems okay with it, so, who's to say. It's also here that we learn what Freddie's new trait is going to be for the episode. Forget about the fedora, because now Freddie's signature trait is that he has jingles for various different things, so he's going to get to do that throughout the episode, so that's awesome. That's very epic. That's very cool.
D's for your doppelganger out in cyberspace.
Babe, I love you, but shut up.
Spencer reveals that the deepfake version of Carly that he's been talking to has convinced him to create a new product with her likeness on it. And that product is a meat sauce for spaghetti or pasta, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. At Shay What, there is a food reviewer who, of course, she's live streaming this, and she absolutely hates the taste of this meat sauce. And she immediately recognizes Carly in the restaurant as the person on the box for the product that she has just consumed. And it would be criminal if I did not mention that Freddie does another jingle, and this one is even worse somehow.
When the situation's not that fun, just pick up a phone, dial 911.
Meanwhile, at Carly and Harper's apartment, Harper and her girlfriend Tinsley are chatting about, and we learn that Tinsley has a friend that's coming to visit. It was also at this point that Connor and I once again successfully predicted where a plot was heading. What's the plot here? Is there a plot yet? Have we been told what's going on here?
Maybe we'll find out. The plot is that Harper doesn't like that guy. I think that might be the plot.
She breaks up with her because he doesn't like him. So Tinsley's friend Dimitri comes, and big surprise, Harper does not get along with this guy. Ironically enough, this is almost exactly how Harper treats other people, so this is just a harsh look in the mirror for her.
Thank you for cooking, but this looks like it was thrown up by an old person.
Back at the iCarly studio, Carly is doing an emergency broadcast to try and clear the air about the recent situation with the meat sauce. And it's in this live stream that we are introduced to one of the greatest decisions in iCarly history. Please give a huge round of applause to whoever made the decision to add a chat to the live stream. My eyes were absolutely glued to the chat, and I did not pay attention to a single word uttered by anyone on screen for the remainder of the broadcast. And the biggest highlight from the chat being some freak that keeps talking about wanting to wear Carly's skin. Now, to get to the meat of what is actually happening here, the deepfake Carly requests to join the live stream, and it's here that the deepfake Carly tries to make the case for her being the real one. Carly is absolutely baffled as to who could be doing this to her, but it doesn't take long for them to determine that this is the work of Neville Papperman. We then cut to what Carly describes as an evil lair, but it's very obviously the same exact location that they used for the influencer boxing event from last season. I know this show is probably operating on a shoestring budget and they don't really have a lot of resources to allocate, but I mean, just go and borrow a set from one of the other shows that are filming on your lot for the day. It shouldn't be that hard. And obviously the bar for an evil lair is pretty low here, so I think that anything would suffice. As the iCarly crew are just kind of standing around, Neville and Prunella enter, and Carly goes and confronts Neville. Neville then tells Carly that they are doing this because she failed to give them a wedding gift within 1 year's time. And all things considered, I think this is pretty reasonable. I would do this too. Neville concludes by stating that there is absolutely nothing that they can do to make him stop messing with Carly. And then we get sucked back to the B plot with Harper, Tinsley, and the boy. And there's really just nothing going on here. I mean, the obvious plot point is that she's going to have to make an ultimatum. She's going to have to say, hey, it's either me or your friend because he sucks. So it's really just a waiting game to get to that point. And in the meantime, you have to deal with some very annoying dialogue between all of these characters. Back in the A plot, we learn that Carly is just going to take the back seat in this situation and see how it plays out. However, Harper comes rushing in, displaying a live stream in which Freddie Benson, clearly not Freddie Benson, it's a deepfake, is endorsing the fake Carly's poisonous product. And now that Freddie is being involved, Carly has had it with this situation and she's going to put an end to it by first and foremost, swearing.
Bitch!
Carly then devises a plan which involves knocking out Neville and Prunella using chloroform, which, spoiler alert, does not end up happening for whatever reason. I was really looking forward to seeing that, and it just does not play out, which is absolutely devastating to me and all the chloroform heads out there who really love seeing chloroform in media. Meanwhile, at the location that Carly and Harper are renting to live in, Harper and Tinsley are preparing for a dinner date where Harper finally reveals to Tinsley that she didn't really care for Dimitri at all. But after this, Tinsley sets down a third plate at the table and the doorbell rings, revealing that Dimitri has been invited to hang out with them yet again. Things come to a head at the dinner though when Dimitri attempts to give them food that has the famous pasta sauce, meat substitute or whatever the hell it is that Carly's deepfake has been trying to sell. Harper catches on to this and tells Tinsley that this man is trying to poison them, and Tinsley finally goes off on this guy and gets him out of here. Alright, yippee hurrah. The B plot has been solved and we can move on. And would you look at the time, it's time to wrap up the A plot as well. Jeez, things are just getting way too crazy. We've got to end things now. And you may be wondering to yourself, wow, what are they going to do? Are they going to stick to the chloroform idea? Are they going to show up in camo and shoot them both individually? And unfortunately, the answer is no. They are not going to be killing anyone. There's no violence to be seen, unfortunately. But they do, however, give them a taste of their own medicine in the form of deepfakes of Neville and Prunella. And yes, this is all it takes for the plot to be solved. So yeah, that's the episode basically. I found this episode to just be very boring, and I really can't give it any other attributes than boring. Not to say that the episode is not bad, because yeah, it's bad. That's, a boring episode is not good. But there was just nothing that I cared about in the entire episode. I didn't care about the Neville situation because I knew that was going to get solved by the end of the episode in some uncreative way anyway. And then I really didn't care about the Tinsley and Harper B plot because I know for sure Tinsley is not making it more than a few more episodes. So in conclusion, if the iCarly writers really wanted me to care about this episode at all, they should have gone through with killing Neville. No one would have seen that coming. It would have been an incredible feat and it would have definitely gone trending on Twitter. Episode 6 is titled I Reunited and It Felt Okay and begins at Ridgeview High School as Carly and Freddie are walking down the hallway. It was also at this point in the episode, yes, just 10 seconds in, that I figured out the plot for the entire episode. Granted, I had already read the description for the episode, but if I'm able to synthesize an entire episode out of a one-sentence description, That's not my fault. Carly is excited to give the keynote speech at her high school reunion, but a surprise revelation. Okay, the revelation is gonna be that she didn't technically graduate, probably.
Oh, man.
The whole episode she has to take a bunch of classes really quick or something to officially
It'd be
graduate.
so dumb.
It's really astounding that this show is so void of creativity that I am able to guess what the entire episode's plot is within 10 seconds. And they don't even expand upon the idea, like they don't even try to add a creative twist to it. It's just played straight. So the real question that I must ask myself now is this episode even worth me giving my full attention and energy to? I think it's a worthwhile question to ask because I find it hard to believe that anyone on the writing staff for this show put in any energy or effort on this episode. It's so incredibly boring that the main plot doesn't even start until 9 minutes into the episode. Yeah, that's right. It takes them almost half of the runtime of the episode to actually begin the plot point that is supposed to be driving the episode. Spencer's B-plot in the episode gets its legs going before the main plot can even get started. Pathetic. Nonetheless, I'm going to give the episode the attention that the writers couldn't be bothered to give it in the first place. So, eventually, Carly and Freddie head into the gymnasium where the reunion is happening and run into Rip-Off Rodney, a recurring character from the original series. It is also here that I must give partial credit to a joke that got a chuckle out of me.
You know, after you and Sam took off, I was a bit of a social butterfly. It's no big deal, though. It's not like I was the coolest, most popular guy in school.
Aw, no one was saying that, sweetie.
Oh, snap! It's the coolest, most popular guy in school!
After the theme song is over, we see a character by the name of Magic Malika poof into existence in front of Carly and Freddie. And this is a character that I frankly have absolutely no memory of existing in the original iCarly, but according to the iCarly wiki page, she did indeed exist. They chat for a minute and what they say is irrelevant to the rest of the episode, so we don't have to bother with it, but we're also introduced to yet again 2 more characters who I have absolutely no memory of existing. Their names are Todd and Barry, and much like Magic Malika, appeared in only 1 episode of the original iCarly series, so that basically means that their existence does not matter. So here is where I would have inserted a screenshot of the iCarly wiki page for these 2 characters, but it doesn't matter because they don't even have a single image from their original appearance in the original iCarly series, so there's no reason for me to do this. Not even the iCarly wiki cares about these characters. It doesn't matter. I guess they couldn't get Duke to return, or anyone of slightly more significance than these guys. And now that the show has reintroduced us to these incredibly unimportant characters, we are swiftly taken to the B-plot at Spencer's apartment. The B-plot in the episode is worth noting because it seems like the writers actually tried for this, which is strange since it's, not the main plot. We quickly learn that Spencer has been donating his sperm to a sperm bank and has gotten in contact with the parents of the children that Spencer has been donating his sperm for, and he's invited all of the children over. Spencer invites all of the children to partake in the eating of pizza, but one child does not participate. Spencer goes over to investigate why and learns that this child, whose name is Potter, has brought her own lunch, which she reveals to be spaghetti tacos. Spencer immediately fawns praise over this child and says that she is his favorite. Oh yeah, and also Harper is here for some reason. She basically does nothing. She provides absolutely nothing to this plot. Back at the reunion, Carly runs into Shane, whom she dated in the original series for 1 episode. This was the Beanie Babies guy, if you don't remember. Wrong. Shane was not the Beanie Baby guy. That was a completely different guy. The only thing that this Shane character has going for him that makes him unique is that Carly and Sam saw him at the same time and they were fighting over who got to date him. In the episode, I saw him first. That's it. That's all I got. We learn that he is now the head of the physical education classes at Ridgeview High School, which actually does come into play later in this episode, believe it or not. After this interaction, Carly and Freddie run into Principal Franklin, who finally delivers the plot information that we already knew 10 minutes ago. Carly did not graduate Ridgeview High School. Now, this is perplexing for quite a few reasons. First and foremost being, how did she get into college after she left for Italy? And I don't really have anything else to expand upon that. I just, genuinely, how does that work? How did Carly not know this? Surely she would have been curious as to why she didn't receive a diploma in the mail from Ridgeview, right? Has she thought about this herself? She just came back from Italy and was fine with not receiving her diploma ever? Anyway, it turns out that she has an incomplete for her grade in gym, so she goes to Shane and asks if she can be passed, but Shane says no. Back at Spencer's apartment, Spencer reveals his latest art installation, which is a celebration of all these children that Spencer has had a hand in creating. It's Mount Rushmore, but instead of having 4 presidents' heads, it's just 4 Spencer heads, and there are 10 cutouts for all of Spencer's children to put their heads in for a photograph. However, when all of the children rush to fill the holes with their heads, we see that Potter is left holeless. Spencer had only created 10 holes, but there were 11 children. Harper then announces that there was an imposter among the children, and they had to figure out who the fake Spencer child was. Now, this plot is just stupid and whimsical enough for me to not really care about the details, but this is a review after all, and this is me doing the review, so I'm going to get into the details. And the main question I have is, how is it that Spencer made this mistake? How many people did Spencer email for this event? Did he not email 11 people? Did a parent just randomly drop their child off with Spencer whom he did not contact? I am just a little curious as to how a mistake like this has occurred. Whose fault is it? Anyway, Spencer and Harper have devised a test to determine who the imposter is. That test? Giving each of the children a cookie and seeing how they eat it. If they crumble the cookie as they eat it, then it means that they are one of Spencer's children. However, they go through all of the children and they all eat the cookie the same way Spencer does. But they don't test one of the children, and that child is Potter. Before they can test Potter, we find out that she has set Mount Spencermore on fire, making Spencer once again believe that Potter is indeed his child. Back at the reunion, Shane explains to Carly that he will only pass her if she completes the Lance Armstrong fitness test. Carly attempts this test, but she fails all 3 of the components. Carly is relegated to being the photographer for the class reunion photo, but before she can take the picture, she looks up and sees that Shane is up in the rafters surrounded by wasps. Putting aside the obvious question as to why the hell Shane was up there in the first place, the delivery from Principal Franklin that follows is the funniest thing in the entire episode.
Shane is deathly allergic to all stinging insects!
Oh, yeah, that nest has been there for years. Well, it's not my problem.
Carly then rescues Shane from the rafters, which just happens to involve all of the components of the Lance Armstrong fitness test, so Shane ultimately passes Carly. Also worth noting is how everyone sitting on the bleachers for the class photo remains seated while all of this is happening.
Carly, go!
So Carly finally gets Jim signed off by Shane, and she is officially a graduate of Ridgeview High School. They go to take the photograph once again, and this time they have Millicent take the picture, but in the process they do this cringe joke where Millicent doesn't know how to take a picture without thinking it's voice activated. Haha, get it? Kids are so stupid. Kids don't understand technology older than 2 years old. Very, very funny. At Spencer's apartment, we get the B plot wrapped up with Potter's mom coming by to explain why there was an additional child in the mix. It turns out that Potter's mom had tracked Spencer down as opposed to Spencer tracking down all of the other parents, but that still doesn't explain how she knew to bring the child on this specific day at this specific time. Surely Spencer was still the person who got all these people together for this, right? Was the mom the person that organized all of these children to come and spend time with the sperm donor? Very strange if that's the case. Anyway, the episode ends with Carly and Freddie coming back home from the reunion, and Spencer introduces Potter to Carly and says that Potter is her niece. They do this reveal in a way that almost makes it seem like Potter is going to be a brand new character that's going to be permanent for the rest of the show, but that is simply not the case. Even though the episode was pretty boring for me because I already knew what was going to happen 10 seconds into the episode, the B-plot was at least something that reminded me of the original iCarly series in a way. It was definitely something that I could have envisioned happening in the original iCarly show, although maybe not with such explicit terms as sperm donor. Harper's presence in the B-plot, though, felt more like a tumor that you wanted to remove rather than anything that added something of value. Even if this plot was in the original iCarly series, I think that this would have definitely been a solo Spencer adventure because none of the other characters would have needed to be there at all. This is all about Spencer. We don't need to hear from anyone else about this. So yeah, Overall, pretty mediocre episode. Episode 7 is titled I Go to Toledo and starts out in Carly and Harper's apartment as preparations are being made for Mrs. Benson's bachelorette party. Yeah, this is still happening. I hope you didn't forget, but Mrs. Benson is marrying Lubert. It's also here that we get one of the most anticipated character reveals of all time as we see Danica from the book club who wore the beret in the flesh. She's exactly as I pictured her in my head. Anyway, Carly reveals what the plans are for Mrs. Benson's bachelorette party. They will be traveling to Toledo, Ohio. All of this because Mrs. Benson's favorite TV show is Toledo House Flip. Carly explains that she has signed them up for the Toledo House Flip experience where they will pretend to renovate a house in Toledo, Ohio. Evidently, these were not the original plans for the bachelorette party, and Mrs. Benson responds by saying, "Classic Carly." Carly then goes over to Freddie and asks him what classic Carly means. Freddie reveals that this means Mrs. Benson thinks Carly is
impulsive, unreliable, disrespectful to elders, and prone to hijacking a weekend.
And this had me confused because it got me thinking about season 2, episode 1, in which Carly and Freddie pretended to be a couple, and Mrs. Benson seemed to be ecstatic that they had finally gotten together. And now we see that Mrs. Benson is apparently not completely thrilled with them as a couple. Make up your mind, woman. After Carly finds this out, she becomes determined to make sure that this bachelorette party is perfect. Freddie then makes his exit from the apartment, and as he does it, he tells Millicent that he loves her, and barely even receives a response back. Wow, what a great child. I hope she realizes that Freddie has absolutely zero obligation to keep her housed at all. This is not even his own child. Millicent's own mother has essentially abandoned her with Freddie, and Millicent shows absolutely zero respect to him. Freddie could probably kick Millicent to the curb and make her homeless, and Millicent's own mother would probably not even know about it for months. After the theme song, we get this incredibly unnecessary graphic of an airplane flying from Seattle to Toledo, and for some reason we get it from the perspective of an entire globe. This was not an intercontinental trip. They barely even flew across the country. Not to mention, I would expect the iCarly writers to at least think that the audience was smart enough to remember the fact that they had just said that they're going to go to Toledo for this house flipping experience. I think the audience would be able to figure it out when they realized that the cast was now in a house that looked like it needed to be fixed. But maybe I'm wrong, and the people who actually like this show are too stupid to know what's going on without it being spelled out explicitly to them. The group begins settling into this house that looks like it's been abandoned and start questioning what is actually going to be happening here. Harper points out that it looks like they're going to be actually doing manual labor instead of doing anything that is fun. The host of the experience then collects all of their phones and locks them away, and unfortunately, once again, at this point, I figured out the entire plot of the episode. I already know where this is going. They're gonna have to do manual labor, and they're gonna hate it, and they don't have any, and they're gonna be locked in, and they don't have any way to tell anyone because their phones are locked in. After the phones are handed over, Mrs. Benson makes a remark reminding the audience of Carly's claustrophobia. Surely this will not be something that comes into play later in the episode. Back in Seattle, we learn that Mrs. Benson has put Freddie in charge of throwing a bachelor party for Lubert, despite the fact that Freddie has absolutely zero interest in doing so. Freddie asks Lubert who he would like to invite to the bachelor party, and apparently the first person he requested was Spencer Shea. Spencer then asks if he can invite Josh Peck to join them on the bachelor party, and he calls him up, and he decides that he will be joining in on this bachelor party for a guy that I am not even sure he has met in person yet. Back in Toledo, the bachelorette party continues to do manual labor. Mrs. Benson begins complaining, and Carly tries to smooth things over by making up a game on the spot. The details of this game do not matter, and by this point in the episode, my eyes began glazing over and I lost consciousness. When I regained consciousness, Mrs. Benson was angrily smashing a hammer into the wall because Carly began divulging upcoming trip plans she had with Freddie. Mrs. Benson begins crying, and at this point, Carly feels like she has ruined both the bachelorette party and her chance to make Mrs. Benson like her. Which, once again, seems to only be a trait that Mrs. Benson exhibits in this episode alone. However, when Carly attempts to leave, the host of the house flipping experience blocks her in the doorway, stating that they are trapped.
You're trapped.
God dang it.
Why?
Holden. I can't.
Perhaps I was being
The thing that confuses me the most about this is that if I were in this situation, I would simply just leave. I'm too lazy to look up the details on this, but I am pretty sure that what is happening here is illegal, despite the fact that they signed a contract. Even so, there are 5 of them and only 1 host. Simply beat her up if it comes to it. Millicent points out to the host that because she is a minor, she cannot be contractually obligated under this contract, and she is allowed to just kind of hang around and also boss people around with the host. Later, we find out that Millicent was also doing this as a way to get access to her phone and contact Freddie and tell Freddie what was going on. Back in Seattle, the bachelor party is in full swing with Spencer and Josh Peck joining because they are Lubert's greatest friends in life. Towards the end of the scene, we see Freddie check his phone and say that they have to go. There is an emergency. And this is, you know, I already spoiled it. You know what this is. This is Millicent contacting Freddie. Back in Toledo, Mrs. Benson is having a full-on panic attack over the fact that Carly is dating Freddie, but it's more specifically just that Freddie is not a little kid anymore, but like that's been the case for, what, a decade now at the very least? Like, I don't understand why it is only now that Mrs. Benson is freaking out over this stuff. Like, Freddie has been married twice. Did she not already come to terms with this? Honestly, the more I think about Freddie's relationship with his mom, the more it just makes me sad. Like, this is not funny anymore. So Mrs. Benson continues to scream and holler, and this panic attack ends with her trapping herself in the walls of the house. Somehow. And at this point, Lubert, Freddie, Spencer, and Josh Peck all barge through the door to rescue them. I suppose teleporters exist within the iCarly universe because how do they expect me to believe that they just took a 4-hour flight with no in-universe indication that any time has passed? The scenes in which Millicent sides with the host and then Mrs. Benson freaking out appear to happen directly after each other, which makes it seem that the bachelor party got word of this, got on a flight, and arrived all within about 10 minutes. Anyway, the arrival of the bachelor party is essentially useless because they all are incapacitated due to using Lubert's special juice to exfoliate their feet, and their feet are in immense pain. So it is now up to Carly to go into the walls and get Mrs. Benson out of there. Harper then reminds Carly that she has claustrophobia, which I think is in here more so to remind the audience yet again that Carly does indeed have claustrophobia. We then cut to Carly crawling through the crawl space with basically no issue whatsoever, so I guess Carly has officially gotten over her claustrophobia. Exciting. And she is so over her claustrophobia that she even has time to stop and recreate a monologue from Die Hard.
Come to Toledo, get together, flip a house, have a few laughs.
Incredible. If they had made this season in 2020 or 2021, they could have done an Among Us joke here. They could have been like, I guess I'm the imposter. I'm in the vents. Or maybe I guess I'm the engineer. I'm in the vents. Something like that. You know, this is what they're missing on the writing team. Now that Carly is in the walls with Mrs. Benson, they have a talk with each other and come to terms with their respective relationships with Freddie. And once they're finished with their talk, Mrs. Benson does a reference to The Shining, which is just so ham-fisted. Like, why are they doing this? It just feels so out of place. Now out of the walls, Mrs. Benson tells Freddie that his girlfriend faced her biggest fears to rescue her, which is not really true. You were never trapped. You put yourself back there, and you also got yourself out with the hammer that was already back there. And it's after this that Lubert gets them out of this situation by telling the host that Ohio is an employment at will state, meaning that you can quit at any time regardless of any contract signed, which I feel like that's applicable everywhere in the US, right? Because otherwise that's kind of just like slavery, right? It was like, all right, you got to work forever until you complete the job. I mean, at the very least, indentured servitude, right? Hello, I've done a little bit of additional research here on this topic, and basically every single state in the United States, except for New Hampshire, is an employment at will state. So that means that in Ohio, in Texas, in Utah, so on and so forth, you can quit your job at any point that you would like. However, that also means that your employer can fire you for any reason. They don't have to have any cause. They can just fire you, if, willy-nilly, however, whenever they want. But it's in Montana that your employer must have good cause in order to fire you. All right, back to the video. So Lubert's defense works, and the host runs off afraid that she will be arrested for kidnapping. And the rest of the people still in the abandoned house are now free to leave. The episode then ends in the iCarly studio with Josh Peck doing whatever this is.
This is a Paul show, and I am Paul.
I feel like this is maybe the second or third episode in a row now where I've just not really been able to find words to describe how the episode has made me feel, because it's mostly made me feel nothing. There just isn't really much to say about these episodes because not a whole lot happens. The only noteworthy thing from this episode is Mrs. Benson's hatred for Carly, which shouldn't have even been a thing in the first place. In the end, I can't really muster up any feelings one way or the other about this episode. Episode 8 is titled I Cause a Catastrophe and is the first episode in quite some time in which I was unable to predict the plot for the episode. And that's mostly because I was too busy making fun of the writer's inability to write interesting or good plots. Look, huge conflict here. One person, they have different ideas of what jewelry might be and what is important. What if they had different ideas about jewelry? Oh, that's a plot. So the episode begins at Carly and Harper's apartment, and just 6 seconds into the episode, we already have an incredible display of the craftsmanship that goes into making this show with reality TV level audio stitching.
I think it's really sweet that you're throwing this jewelry party for Tinsley.
So we learn that Tinsley is coming by to make friendship bracelets with Harper and Carly, and Tinsley comes with this huge loot crate full of presumably very expensive jewelry. Carly begins looking through the box of jewels and finds a pair of earrings that she thinks look nice. Tinsley then says that Carly can have them for herself, with her direct words being,
Carly, I swear if you don't take those, I'm gonna toss them out the window at pigeons. I beg you.
Later at Spencer's apartment, Spencer reveals that he'll be making a piece for the Seattle Cat Museum's fundraising gala and invites Millicent and Freddie to come along. After Harper leaves, Carly reveals to everyone that she's incredibly anxious over the $80,000 earrings that she now owns, fantasizing about burglars entering her home and stealing them. She then realizes that she could donate them to the silent auction at the Cat Gala and do some good while also ridding herself of the earrings without Tinsley knowing. While Carly goes to the Cat Gala to make the donation, Freddie confides in Spencer that he is terrified of cats. Spencer then tells Freddie that he could use feline exposure therapy and throws a pillow at him, which has something to do with cats, I guess. Do cats physically throw pillows at people? I've never seen that happen before, but I guess. I don't know. Also, I lied earlier. I do actually predict the plot of the episode. Alright, so where's this gonna go? Is Tinsley and Harper going to show up to this, and just Carly is gonna have to try and not have her see the earrings?
I hope so.
Also, we get some of that evergreen millennial comedy in which someone says one thing and then a different character says the opposite.
I did a good thing. You did a very bad thing.
Hilarious. So Carly explains to Harper that Tinsley didn't even want the earrings in the first place, but Harper says that she didn't mean it. But how is Carly supposed to know that? She quite literally had the earrings given to her. Was she supposed to be under the impression that she was only borrowing them? I have no idea how else Carly was supposed to take that. Anyway, Carly says that it doesn't matter because Tinsley will never know that they were donated to the Cat Museum fundraiser. But once again, we get the incredibly funny joke where one character says one thing and then the opposite thing happens.
And besides, there's no way she will ever find out that I donated them to the Catillion.
We're all going to the Catillion!
2 times in one episode. Wow, the writers must have really been loving this joke that afternoon. Tinsley walks through the door and states that they will be attending the Cat Museum fundraiser to Carly's dismay. And this is where an intelligent person would get themselves out of the situation by simply telling her that the earrings had been donated. I don't even see what the issue is at this point. It's not like Carly threw them into a dumpster or something. They're now benefiting a cause that Tinsley clearly has an interest in. Back at Spencer's apartment, the lights are completely out as Freddy walks in, and Freddy is trying to figure out what is going on and why the lights are out, but I'm trying to figure out why he didn't just flip the light switch on as he entered the apartment. You know, like the first thing that anyone does when they enter any house or apartment. So we find out that this is a continuation of Spencer's cat exposure therapy thing, and he is dressed up as a cat. And before playing this next set of clips, I would like to remind you that this is supposed to be a show for adults.
Don't you stop.
Yeah, that was awful. At the cat gala, Carly tries to sweet talk her way into getting the earrings back, but she is unsuccessful. She then realizes that she has no other choice but to steal them back, and she gives everyone a job to do to successfully pull this heist off. And luckily, Freddy has brought his laptop here, which he plans to use to hack into the museum security. This is also a nice reminder that Freddy, at least at one point, was a tech genius. And so the plan begins. And while I won't bore you with all the details, the most notable part is when Spencer unleashes a herd of cats on the museum, which causes the entire gala to react in just as much horror as Freddy does, who is actually scared of cats. You know, opposed to the people that are here for a cat fundraising gala. Maybe they might be interested in cats, maybe even like them, probably not scared of them. There weren't even that many cats. You could easily avoid them if you really wanted to. I don't understand what the problem was here. And also, I have to point out this guy in the background that's just doing what looks like a dance of some sort. So because of this cat distraction, Freddy is unable to disable the security mechanisms in time, and Carly gets caught trying to steal the earrings back. Tinsley now knows that Carly is giving the earrings away, and yeah, that's basically the end of the plot, besides the fact that Tinsley does forgive Carly about 2 minutes later when she stands up for her against the cat host lady. The episode ends with everyone sitting at a table licking milk out of a cat bowl, except for Tinsley, who is just pretending to do it. Now, at first, I thought that maybe this was just the actress being lazy and not committing to the bit, but I now firmly believe that this was a genius moment of character writing for Tinsley, showing that the character is faking it because she doesn't want to stoop down to the level of the others, which is honestly a nice touch. So yeah, that's the episode. And as I said at the end of the last episode review, I'd feel about the same with this episode as I have with the last three, which is nothing. I just feel like these episodes have so little plot, and 99% of it is just filler to pad the time and jokes that they really couldn't find a better way of throwing into the show. They just seem to have so little interest in actually constructing a plot that is interesting or makes sense. So yeah, it's just another below average episode, nothing really noteworthy about it at all. Episode 9 is titled I Create a New Ecosystem and starts out at the Benson apartment with Carly, Freddy, and Millicent preparing for Millicent's mom's arrival. Carly and Freddy are making Gwen's enchiladas, but they're adding pineapple, which Millicent finds disturbing, even going as far as calling it colonization for whatever reason. Millicent is like 10 years old. I don't even think she really knows what colonization means. Freddy then explains to Carly, which, first of all, I have a hard time believing that Freddy has not told Carly what is going on yet, so this is clearly just for the audience, but anyway, Freddy explains to Carly what is going on and how this is the yearly custody check-in with Gwen. And this immediately sounded the alarm bells in my head. Because what the hell do you mean yearly custody check-in? Is Gwen not checking in with Millicent throughout the year? Does she not give her a phone call, no texts, or what? What is going on? And then the other layer to this is that does Gwen just not trust Freddy? Like, you're giving your daughter to this man. If you're going to give the custody of your child to another person, you better have enough trust in them where yearly custody check-ins is not a thing that is required. So Gwen shows up to the apartment and they have this exchange, and it made my eyes roll.
Is there a little future CEO who misses her mommy? The term CEO is patronizing to women, but love the effort. Hi!
So Carly and Freddy are about to tell Gwen the news that they're together, but before they can do it, Gwen says that she would like to spend time with just her family and requests that Carly leave, Which, first of all, rude. Second of all, Freddie is not actually your family. He divorced you, remember that? Or maybe it was the other way around and she divorced him. I don't remember, and I can't be bothered to look it up on the iCarly wiki. Gwen then noticed the distinct smell of pineapple in the air and asks if her recipe had been tampered with. And it was this that was the nail in the coffin for Freddie telling Gwen about him and Carly being together at this moment, and he ushers Carly out of the apartment. At Spencer's apartment, Lubert barges in, followed shortly after by Mrs. Benson, and Lubert announces that he is trying to build a Noah's Ark for insects, and wants Spencer to craft the Ark for him. Mrs. Benson, however, is opposed to this because she does not want bugs in her apartment, which is, pretty understandable, honestly. And that's about as far as this B-plot gets. It's not even really a B-plot, we don't even see Spencer trying to craft anything. It's just kind of this. We're just informed that, Lubert is kind of obsessed with bugs now. In the iCarly studio, Freddie brings up a bunch of books on parenting advice and gives them to Carly to read, all in the hopes that she can impress Gwen with her parenting skills. And when Freddie initially comes up, he tells Carly to table the King of Doom sketch that she is preparing for, and Carly proceeds to explain the sketch to Harper, who has been helping her get ready for 3 hours. I find this very funny and stupid because it implies that Harper has just been standing here for 3 hours helping Carly get ready for something that she just had no idea what it was. So while Freddie is describing what is in the books that he's handing over to Carly, Harper overhears and interrupts by stating that the best way to show Gwen that she's ready to be a parent is by throwing a cookout. And it's also with this that we get a lore dump from Harper, which indirectly implies that she actually comes from immense wealth, which is very intriguing because I would like to know the backstory here. What caused her to lose all of this money? Did she just get cut off from her family? I mean, that's probably the case though. We already know she's an awful person. So it's Harper's plan that Carly ultimately decides to go with, and she proceeds with the plans for a cookout. Josh Peck then shows up and he is depressed. Later in the evening on that same very day, the day that we just saw, Spencer goes up into the iCarly studio and notices all of the parenting books left on the table and immediately assumes that this means Carly is pregnant. Upon this realization, Spencer runs downstairs, all through his apartment, and then out his apartment and into the Benson's apartment and notifies Mrs. Benson that Carly and Freddie are going to be having a baby. The next day, as the cookout, and Gwen tells him that she is not drinking right now. But once again, before Freddie is able to tell Gwen about the relationship, Josh Peck shows up with a foam machine. We also learn that Freddie is still unemployed after selling his Kevin business, and what he is doing now is just so out of character that I have a feeling that the writers of this episode and this show in general have never even watched a single episode of the original iCarly series.
So, what are you doing now?
Well, I've actually been writing a lot of music.
What? He's writing music? Do they not know who this character is? After hearing this news that Freddie is unemployed, Gwen is a little concerned that she is only just now hearing about this. Back at the Walmart Plus, Freddie is still distraught over when he should tell Gwen about the relationship. Mrs. Benson and Lubert show up, and Lubert has a container with tarantulas in it, which immediately sounded the alarms for Connor and I because we assumed that these tarantulas would definitely be coming into play in a very specific way.
That's gonna get on someone.
Get control of your man.
Oh yeah.
And then they're gonna scream. It's gonna be a scene where like they scream off screen and then it shows them a tarantula's already on them. And bonus points if they say, but where are the tarantulas? Or something. Like the crates open and they're empty.
Yeah.
And then it's a scream and then it's on someone. Who do you think it'll be?
This is a tough one.
Is it too predictable if it's her? I feel like it's gonna be Carly, and then that's gonna cause her to like spill something on Gwen or something dumb.
Yeah, I think it is gonna be Carly. Spencer shows up, and it's at this moment that Carly begins going to get things and eat things and drink things that a pregnant person typically should not do. And Spencer reacts in a way that makes it seem like he's kind of crazy, but he thinks that Carly is pregnant, so he's trying to stop her from doing all this stuff. And after all of this, Lubert announces that Carly is pregnant. Oddly enough, Carly kind of looks like she's excited about this news herself, even even though her first reaction probably should have just been to blurt out, "What?" or "No," or "That's wrong," or "What are you talking about? I'm not pregnant." You know, something like that. Instead of immediately disproving this idea, she kind of just lets people keep talking, and then eventually she does say, "I am not pregnant." But Carly and Freddy's relationship is also revealed here because Freddy goes up to Carly and asks if this is true, are we having a baby together? Gwen is upset about this and brings up how Freddy lied about his job and a bunch of other stuff, and how this is probably not a good environment for Millicent, and announces that Millicent will be coming with her when she leaves. And this once again set off the alarm bells in my head. What, so now it's okay for Millicent to come and live with her? I still cannot figure out how this dynamic works. Like, what is going on? What kind of parent does this? Like, she's claiming here that she wants the best for her child, but honestly, the best thing for your child would have probably been for you to still be living with her. Like, she's clearly not putting her daughter first in her life because she has instead opted to go and live on a boat or whatever. And honestly, it's at this point that I started getting flashbacks to that one episode of the original iCarly series where Spencer and Carly's dad came and he was threatening to take away Carly. Like, we've already seen this exact plot play out before in this show. I mean, you truly have to be the biggest idiot on earth if you think that Millicent is actually going to be leaving. Now, would I have personally liked it if Millicent was taken away? Yeah, of course, but I know that's not going to happen. After Gwen is done telling them that she's going to be taking away Millicent, Spencer, Josh Peck, and Harper all get one-liners.
First, I lose a grandchild, and now you're going to take away my niece at my gender reveal party?
If Carly's in preggo, let's kick off this foam party. Inhibition's optional.
I've waited 20 years for this family cookout, and you all are ruining it!
And my personal ranking of these one-liners has to go 3 Harper, 2 Josh Peck, and number 1 obviously goes to Spencer. So congratulations to Spencer Shea for having the best one-liner in this scene. Millicent is over in the foam pit being sad about the prospect of her leaving, and Carly goes over and comforts her. And it's after this that Gwen notices this and decides that, she can stay. Wow, it's almost like there was another episode in this series where this same exact thing happened. Jeez. A lot of the episodes this season have felt very similar to this, but this one is kind of the most prominent, where it just feels like they didn't have a lot of material for this episode. Like, a lot of it just kind of feels like filler. They didn't even really have a B-plot in this episode. I really don't think you can classify Lubert's insect arc as a B-plot at all. Like, nothing really came of that. So yeah, once again, we have an episode that I wouldn't really say I hated, but I also definitely did not love. It is yet another below average episode. Remember that thing with Lubert's tarantulas that he had in the case? Yeah, that didn't really go anywhere. He did say that they were missing, but we didn't see anything. They kind of freaked out about it, but we didn't get to see any tarantulas on any person. So it was basically all for nothing. Episode 10 is titled I Have a Proposal, and it is the very last episode of the iCarly reboot ever. The episode opens up on a very French-themed wedding venue that we learn Danica has been put in charge of putting together. And this wedding, of course, is for Mrs. Benson and Lubert. You know, the two characters that the iCarly fandom wanted to see get together the most. And once Carly, Freddy, and Harper have entered the room and gauged what it's going to be looking like, Carly announces that she's uncertain that Mrs. Benson will actually like this Parisian-themed wedding. Danica reassures Carly that Mrs. Benson will love this and says that Carly must not know Mrs. Benson at all. And Mrs. Benson walks into the room and announces that she hates it. Mrs. Benson begins to fear the worst and decides that they might have to relocate the wedding to Vegas, but this just kind of erupts into complete chaos amongst everyone. Carly, of all people, announces that she will fix this wedding, and that's basically what she proceeds to do for the rest of the episode. So Carly assigns people various tasks to help her get ready with the wedding, and after everyone scurries off, she has a moment with Freddy. Freddy tells Carly how grateful he is that she is so willing to help out his family with stuff like this. And after this, Carly kind of acts out a wedding between the two of them, but not really. I don't really know how to explain it honestly, but Freddie kind of interprets this as Carly trying to tell him that she wants him to propose. But he's not 100% certain about this. Meanwhile, at Harper and Carly's apartment, Harper and Tinsley are hanging out, and we are reminded once again that Harper used to be extremely wealthy. Or at least her family used to be wealthy, or maybe they still are, but either way, Harper is not wealthy. And this doesn't really come into play at all in like the subplot or anything immediately, but it does in a minute. You know, me mentioning that now doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and I mean, yeah. Millicent is at the apartment as well, and she's asking for feedback on the speech she's going to give at the wedding, but she is basically a zero-factor person in this whole episode, so we're going to just forget that she exists for the remainder of this episode. As the scene at Carly and Harper's apartment is coming to a close, we learn that Harper is feeling sick, and Tinsley offers to help her out, saying that she thinks she remembers what her butler would do for her when she was sick. And I guess now is a good time to let you all know that I did make a prediction for this episode's plot, but it did not come true. I think, here's my first guess. No, they each try and set the wedding up. None of them get it right. And Mrs. Benson just marries Lubert and like back in Seattle or something.
Oh my gosh. That's it. That's it. You're right. Because they don't need a big wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not even going to throw out any other guesses because that's it.
Now, I was pretty confident that I was guessing the plot of the episode correctly, but I was even more confident that I was predicting the subplot correctly. Do you think they're going to break up?
And thought, like, who's that? Probably. I don't know, man.
They got to fit that in. They're not keeping her for the potential next season that they thought they were going to have. All right, how do you think they're going to break up? I think they're just going to realize that they're not right for each other, and that's it.
Yeah,
There's not even going to be a
at
conflict.
the wedding or some crap.
Yeah. She's going to be like, I realized at this wedding that I can't see myself with you at a wedding, so we're ending this. That's it. And for those of you out there who have neglected to watch this episode or any of the episodes of iCarly, first of all, I commend you. But second of all, I'll allow you the opportunity to play along at home and try and make a guess as to whether my prediction of the subplot is going to come to fruition or not. So stay tuned. We're going to find out very soon. Freddy's over at Spencer's apartment, and it's here that Freddy asks Spencer to help him figure out if Carly wants him to propose or not. Freddy relays all of the events that led him to believe that she might want him to propose and tells Spencer. And Spencer's also unsure, so it's up to him to get to the bottom of this. And the most important thing to note from this scene is what Freddy says about proposals. And it's that Freddy was not intending on proposing this soon into the relationship. Citing his previous failed marriages, Freddy thinks that he acted too quickly in those and wanted to take things a little bit slower with Carly. Back at the wedding venue, we are officially confirming that the iCarly universe takes place in some sort of cartoon universe, which I guess makes sense because they share the same universe with Henry Danger, which, you know, has superpowers, so why not? Yeah, that plant just freaking burped. This is flippin' epic. Spencer shows up and interrogates Carly as to whether or not she wants Freddy to propose. He makes a few subtle attempts at interrogating Carly on this, but he just kind of breaks and asks her if Freddy should propose. This immediately causes Carly to freak out. Meanwhile, at the Harper and Carly apartment, Harper is beginning to boss Tinsley around a lot more, including using a bell to boss her around. At the Benson apartment, Freddy and Spencer reconvene and Freddy inquires what Carly said. Upon hearing that Carly completely freaked out when the mention of a proposal came up, Freddy appears to be devastated for whatever reason.
I suddenly feel like we have very different ideas of the future. God, do Carly and I want different things?
What are you talking about, Freddy? Weren't you just saying that you weren't ready to propose like 5 minutes ago in the episode? What is wrong with your brain, Freddy Benson? We then cut back to the wedding venue, and also, sorry, if you think that my, descriptions of these scenes are very quick and short, well, the actual scenes themselves are about just as short as my descriptions are. Why is this the case? I don't know. Maybe it's because they're really just sitting at one location for the entire episode and we're just cutting back and forth between this wedding venue and then like 2 other locations. Because there doesn't really seem to be a whole lot of material here. I mean, Harper and Tinsley's thing is basically nothing. The main meat and potatoes of this is Freddy and Carly trying to figure out their proposal situation. And Mrs. Benson and Lubert's wedding is basically nothing at this point. Like, who even cares? We kind of forgot about that even happening. That's in the background now. That's old news. Who cares? So Spencer tells Carly that she now has nothing to worry about as Freddie will not be proposing to her. And now Carly is freaking out once again, thinking that Freddie will never propose to her because of what Spencer repeated to him. And it's also here that we get another moment of reality TV level audio splicing.
Oh my god, I spent this whole weekend making this wedding perfect.
Very cool. In the middle of Carly being upset about this whole situation, she accidentally knocks over lit candles and they fall onto a pile of fireworks. The fireworks begin exploding in what is presumably the most expensive scene in an adult reboot of a children's sitcom. In the aftermath of the fireworks, Spencer and Carly resumed their conversation that they were having beforehand about proposals and marriage. And it was also here that fireworks began going off in my head because this conversation dovetailed into one that was about Carly and Spencer's relationship with their mother. While it's not explicitly said by either character, we can infer that Carly and Spencer's mother left them at some point. And it seems that Carly and Spencer have been struggling with how to deal with this. And I'm honestly just incredibly happy that the writers chose to leave this conversation as vague as it was, because Spencer and Carly know all the details of this. There's no need for either of them to give us a point-by-point breakdown of what went down. But more importantly, this gave me, for the first time in the entire series, an opportunity to really seriously think about what these characters have gone through. You know, what emotions could Carly be feeling in this moment? I mean, she's not explicitly telling us everything. There's obviously still a lot that Carly is holding back even from Spencer in regards to how she feels about marriage. And my personal interpretation is that this is something that Carly has been holding back for a long time, and it's only now in this conversation that she's feeling comfortable enough to share it with Spencer. And more broadly here, I just have to once again give props to the writers for actually pulling this off and doing it. In this moment, we are given the first bit of character development in this entire reboot. Instead of the writers simply saying that Carly's nervous or scared about getting married right now, they actually tie it to a piece of Carly's character as a human being. Sure, it's true, Carly is scared. She is nervous of marriage and what that means. But we're additionally given this background information that helps us as an audience better understand Carly Shay as a character in this world. This conversation between Carly and Spencer is undoubtedly the best thing that the iCarly writers have done in this entire reboot series. Well, while it was fun to extensively praise something in this show for once, we unfortunately have to crash back down to the reality that there's still a good bit of stuff to talk about in this episode, and none of it is going to be as good as that was. The next day, we learn that Spencer and Freddie stayed up the entire night cleaning up the mess from the firework explosion and getting everything set up to be ready for the wedding. Carly and Freddie also talk out their issues with the proposal and marriage, and Carly comes to the decision that Freddie is the person that she wants to marry. Eventually. After the conversation, they point out the tarantula-themed candelabra that's hanging over the wedding venue, and this is a reference to Lubert's new bug fanaticism that he gained in the previous episode, so they're really getting a ton of mileage out of that character trait, I guess. In the next scene, Harper continues to give me reasons to hate her as she tries to make the wedding all about her.
I haven't felt this good in years. All eyes on me at this wedding.
Shut up. Not everything has to be about you. Why so self-centered? I hate this person so much. There's not a single redeeming character trait about Harper. I firmly believe that I would have liked these characters a little bit more if they just straight up murdered someone in the first episode and not cared about it at all. Like, that would have just solidified to me that these are all bad characters, and the writers know it. And speaking of murder...
I found Danica's formal beret. I think the plant ate her.
They better not back out of this. Danica's dead. Keep it that way.
Yeah.
Kill a character in the iCarly universe. I'd love to see it.
That would be funny.
Yeah. When Danica runs into the wedding, we learn that Mrs. Benson and Lubert have run off to Las Vegas to go get eloped there. So the wedding is off. What an incredible waste of money, time, and effort from all of your friends and family. Luckily, no one seems to really care about this, and actually it seems like everyone is happy. Millicent seems to be the only person who's actually upset that the wedding is canceled, as she's memorized a bunch of crap that she doesn't get to now recite. So she propositions everyone in the room and asks if anyone here wants to get married so she can still recite all of her stuff. At this request, Carly and Freddie begin eyeing each other, and this sappy music begins playing while they talk, And it's kind of almost seeming like they're about to actually get married here. Whether or not this is the case, I guess we will never find out because we get interrupted by this.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Mom?
And there goes all of the interest that I could have had for this show potentially getting a 4th season. First and foremost, what the hell is Carly and Spencer's mother, whom they haven't seen in who knows how long, doing at Mrs. Benson and Lubert's wedding? In what world does this make any sense whatsoever? And then secondly, this is just so incredibly lazy that it actually hurts my heart. You have this question throughout the entire iCarly series of what happened to Spencer and Carly's mom. And then finally, after over a decade, we get some information about their mom. Carly and Spencer's conversation about this was enough intrigue for me personally to have continued watching this show. They didn't need to cheapen this moment by having a cliffhanger where their mom shows up to the wedding of all places. It's just so stupid and unnecessary, and it cheapens the moment that we had earlier with Carly and Spencer. And I honestly can't think of a better way to end this episode review than to just play out my exact reaction to the actual episode's end. What? Why? Why would their mom be here?
Yeah, wait. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That's it?
Why would she be there?
That's her mom.
Why would she show up at this wedding for...
I gotta go to Freddie's mom's wedding. That's where I'll see my daughter again.
Oh yeah, and Harper and Tinsley, they didn't break up. They're still together, so that's another prediction I got wrong. Well, now that we've seen every single episode of iCarly, which is in of itself an incredible feat. Not many people have probably done this. I'm probably a very unique individual right now. But now that I've seen every single episode, I can do something very cool. I can rank every single episode of iCarly 2021. But you may be asking yourself, in which order are you going to go? Are you going to go worst to best or best to worst episodes? Because both of those ends are very interesting. You know, you're going to be on the edge of your seat either way. You might be very curious to find out what I place at the best. You're going to be very curious to find out what I place at the worst of the list. Hold on to your seats because I have an innovation. I have a brand new invention that's going to absolutely change the ranking industry from here on out. Instead of doing worst to best or best to worst, I'm going to do 2 lists, average to worst and average to best. Didn't see that one coming, did you? So let's go ahead and get things started with the first list. We're going to be starting our ranking with our average to best list. So we're going to start at our number 16 spot with Season 1, Episode 3's I Faux-Apologize. The B-plot is not going to have any resolution at all. In fact, the episode is just going to end with everyone singing Millicent's stupid jingle again.
It's not my job to educate you unless you pay me money.
At number 15, we have Season 2, Episode 6's I Build a Team. I'd like to point out that they use this god-awful static effect on the TV that is it just looks so bad. It's so bad. And I don't fault the editor of this because why the hell would you care? Just put in as minimal effort as possible on this show. It doesn't matter. At number 14, we have Season 3, Episode 2, I Love Your Shoes.
You suck. And you suck. You definitely suck. And you're just mean.
At number 13, we have Season 3, Episode 6, I Reunited and It Felt Okay. It was also at this point in the episode, yes, just 10 seconds in, that I figured out the plot for the entire episode. At number 12, we have Season 1, Episode 13, I Return to Webicon. But the ending of this episode is just so stupid and it doesn't make any sense that it just kind of ruins the whole episode for me. At number 11, we have Season 2, Episode 10, I Throw a Flawless Murder Mystery Party. Overall, I found this episode to be just okay. I didn't find anything in this episode that really made me frustrated like many episodes prior to it have. But there also wasn't really anything in it that made me say, wow, this is a really good episode of iCarly. At number 10, we have Season 1, Episode 11's I Can Fix It Myself. So overall, I think that the main plot of this episode is pretty decent, and once again, the subplot falls pretty short. At number 9, we have Season 1, Episode 10's I Take a Girls Trip. So in conclusion, the idea for the plot was pretty decent. The main character is not good, so that results in a pretty average episode. So it's like 5 out of 10 or something. At number 8, we have season 1, episode 12, I Throw a Flawless Dinner Party. Also, this is my favorite part of the episode. Carly comes in and says, "I'll let you sleep," and then proceeds to monologue to her.
Nona Sylvia? I'll let you sleep. I'm so sorry that I hurt you.
At number 7, we have season 1, episode 9, IMLM. I thought that the plot overall was pretty interesting and it kept me engaged throughout the episode, but there is somewhat of a lack of a conclusion at the end. I mean, Freddy got scammed and that's about it. At number 6, we have season 1, episode 2, I Hate Carly. Carly also comes to the conclusion that the iCarly hater guy is local to Seattle because his profile picture is a picture of the Seattle Space Needle. And Carly, I hate to break it to you, but anyone can have the Seattle Space Needle as their profile picture. At number 5, we have season 1, episode 1, I Start Over. The fact that Freddy is filming this new iCarly show on his phone. Why is Freddie Benson, the technological genius who had his own camera to film the original iCarly broadcast, filming this on a cell phone? Is this man insane? Not even the most famous content creators on the internet use their cell phone to film videos these days. At number 4, we have season 2, episode 2, I Object, Lubert. In fact, I actually think that this episode is one of the best, if not the best, in the entire reboot series. Although I do have to say that the praise that I give this episode is mostly due to the concept alone, as I feel like the execution of the idea is just not all there. At number 3, we have season 2, episode 1, I Guess Everyone Just Hates Me Now. Overall, while it's not my favorite episode of anything ever, I still think that it was a pretty solid episode, especially for a season 2 opener. At number 2, we have season 1, episode 8, I Love Gwen. I rewatched this episode in particular pretty late into the night. I think it was around 2 or 3 a.m. when I was watching it, and I was pretty tired. And after I finished it, I was thinking, I wonder if I really actually thought that episode was decent, or if I'm just tired. And now I can confirm, I really did think the episode was decent. And at the number 1 spot for the greatest episode in the iCarly reboot, we have season 3, episode 4, I Go Public. Alright, so despite a lot of my complaining in this episode review, this is undoubtedly the best episode of the iCarly reboot. Yes, there are a lot of problems with the episode still, but I think I have to give credit where it's due, and it's due here. This is a great episode of iCarly. The side plot was almost unbearable, and the main plot certainly had its own issues, but there were a lot of great jokes that definitely landed and made me chuckle. And now we move on to the second list, which is going from average to worst. Starting at number 17, we have season 1, episode 7's I Need Space. So you could technically say this plot had a conclusion, but it's not very satisfying in the slightest. Argentina is still able to continue doing what she was doing. It's not like the iCarly gang stopped her. But in this instance, they actually do just give in to her demands and they delete the footage. It's not satisfying at all for this conclusion to be the way it is. Number 16, season 2, episode 3, I'm Wild and Crazy. So Carly gets up and goes over to the stranger and kisses him, and for whatever reason, they played this sound effect. What the hell is this? I thought this sound effect was reserved for like 2 main characters kissing, but the show expects me to have this audible reaction when Carly goes over and kisses this guy I've never seen before? Okay, cool. Number 15, season 2, episode 8, I'm a USA Bae. It doesn't make any sense, and it's yet again another situation where I just think that the writers came up with one thing that they thought would be funny to do, and then didn't think about the logic surrounding it. I almost feel like someone in the writer's room was punished with this episode. Like, someone came in one day with the last half of this episode already written, and then handed it off to like the guy they all hated the most and said, alright, write the first half, idiot. And then all the other writers like got up from their swivel chairs and laughed as they walked out of the room, leaving this poor guy alone by himself. Number 14 is season 3, episode 10, I Have a Proposal.
Mom?
What? Why? Why would their mom be here?
Yeah, wait. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
13 is season 1, episode 4, I Got Your Back. My complaint with the A plot is kind of similar to the B plot, and there was not really much payoff at the end. They kind of made up, and Harper came to the rescue of Carly and held her dress together, but it wasn't really satisfying at all. 12 is season 3, episode 1, I Buckled. And in this shot, it seems that the boom operator was on lunch break or something because Freddy's laugh sounds like it's coming from the other room.
Pearl T. Barnum over here.
Number 11, season 3, episode 7, I Go to Toledo. I feel like this is maybe the second or third episode in a row now where I've just not really been able to find words to describe how the episode has made me feel, because it's mostly made me feel nothing. Number 10 is season 3, episode 8, I Cause a Catastrophe. And before playing this next set of clips, I would like to remind you that this is supposed to be a show for adults.
Don't you stop.
Yeah, that was awful. 9 is season 2, episode 5, I Cupid. The main takeaway I had was that I was just bored out of my mind while watching this episode. There's not really much of a plot here at all, and when there is any semblance of a plot, it's either something that I've seen before in a sitcom, or I already know what is going to happen at the end anyway. Number 8 is season 3, episode 3, I Make New Memories. And then they go in for seconds, and I'll just play this clip as is because, I'll give you a warning, it's very nauseating. I would not recommend you watch this if you're queasy, if you get frightened easily. This is not going to be good for you. There's your warning. Here we go.
Ooh, let's do that again.
In 5, 4.
Number 7 is season 3, episode 9, I Create a New Ecosystem. So yeah, once again, we have an episode that I wouldn't really say I hated, but I also definitely did not love. It is yet another below average episode. Number 6 is season 2, episode 4, I Hire a New Assistant. Take a look at this masterful camera work displayed as the camera wobbles as it moves. The camera person definitely didn't care, and if there's anyone on set to supervise the shots on this show, they for sure did not care. Number 5 is season 1, episode 6, I'm Cursed. This episode has to have one of the most abrupt endings in this entire series. Even on the rewatch that I did of this episode in preparation for this video, I was absolutely stunned that the episode ended this way. When the credits started rolling, the actual words that came out of my mouth were, "That's it?" I mean, we are once again seeing an episode of this show that just has no conclusive ending. This episode of iCarly ends with Carly being in the exact same spot as when she started. She didn't learn anything. She began the episode believing that she had a curse on her birthday, and she ended it believing that she had a curse on her birthday. Number 4 is season 3, episode 5, I Faked It. I found this episode to just be very boring, and I really can't give it any other attributes than boring. Number 3 is season 1, episode 5, I Robot Wedding. Even if you placed this episode in the original iCarly run, it still wouldn't make any sense with the same characters. The only way I could see this working with Carly becoming blinded by this rage of jealousy is if it was over someone else, not Neville. Even then, it's a bit of a stretch to say that her blind jealousy would have made her come to the conclusion that someone is a robot. Number 2 is season 2, episode 9, I Hit Something. Not really the worst thing I've ever seen, but obviously not anything great. It contains one of the worst lines of dialogue I've possibly ever heard in my entire life, and so for that alone, I think this episode is completely unwatchable. And the number 1 worst episode of the entire iCarly reboot series is season 2, episode 7, I Dragged Him. So yeah, I'd rate this episode bad out of 10. This episode felt borderline incoherent with 3 plot lines with only one of them really having anything interesting going on. When the season 2 trailer came out, one of the clips they used was of the Great Globetrot Race challenge with the watermelon. I immediately knew that they were going to be parodying The Amazing Race, and I was excited to see what they were going to do with that. However, what we got was pretty lackluster. They could have been going to like an international Scrabble tournament, and the plotline would have been pretty much the same thing. What I'm trying to say is they didn't utilize the material that The Amazing Race has. They could have structured an incredible plotline out of that. There's so many missed opportunities and and missed jokes that they could have mined out of this. Just imagine Spencer and Carly trying to compete in challenges and interacting with the other teams and hosts for the whole episode. That would have been wildly more entertaining than what we got out of this. Meanwhile, you have Harper and Millicent's subplots competing to see who can be the most substanceless. Millicent's subplot is just she's told that she's too aggressive, so she tones it down, and then it turns out that she needs to be aggressive, so she does that, and that's literally it. And then Harper's subplot is only interesting and engaging to the viewers they're hoping to poach off of RuPaul's Drag Race. And that concludes my ranking of every single episode in the iCarly reboot. Thank you. So now that we've got the rankings out of the way, I think it's time for a little self-deprecation, okay? Who doesn't love to see someone hate on themselves? Because, you know, you can never do it better than anyone else. So I'm going to go through the previous 2 iCarly videos that I made, and I'm just going to run through things that I got wrong, or I think that I could have presented in a better way, that kind of stuff. It's going to be fun. You're going to like this, okay? You're going to like this. Welcome to this segment where I trash my own work. First of all, we're going to be starting out with the Season 1 review. Obviously, why would I start out with Season 2? That would be stupid. But also, you might notice that here we have Minecraft in the lower right-hand corner. That's because I don't even want to, you know, this is how this content is supposed to be consumed anyway. You're not even supposed to watch this, like, sitting down. This is, like, second monitor content anyway, so. But yeah, I'm just going to go through this point by point. I'm going to absolutely trash my own work, from the most minuscule details to the larger scale details. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to be strip mining, and I'll give you updates on how many diamonds I get. You know, my inventory is a bit full right now. I've got 42 diamonds on. I've got a Fortune 3 Efficiency 4 Unbreaking 3 pickaxe. So that's pretty cool. Here it is. First of all, we can go ahead and start at this little detail. The title cards are very inconsistent throughout this video and the Season 2 one. Like, I was really messing around with stuff. I didn't really know exactly how I wanted to present things. And this is just kind of a very basic attempt at doing some sort of title presentation. And I think I'm very happy with what I did in this video.
In December 2020...
Oh yeah, and I already at the start, I was criticizing my own piece because I was like, this is out of focus. Yeah, duh. Why don't simply just re-record it then?
Hi, I am an insane man from the future to interject in this intro because it's actually...
I don't... Okay, if I was to remake this video today, I would not have really emphasized the insane man part because it's not really, like... So my idea going into this was that I would, like, start out clean shaven and my hair would be shorter. And then by the end of it, I would be, like... I would look kind of like a mess. And, I mean, I kind of achieved that. You know, but I don't really look insane here. That's just kind of... I'm just projecting here. That's what I want you to think. That's why I didn't re-record the intro, even though it was out of focus. I was like, well, then it's gonna ruin the bit where my hair is longer and I have a beard. Dude, just re-record it. It's not that good of a bit.
I was a part of iCarly history.
Yeah, this is all like, this is very all over the place here. Like, I cut into my own thing and then I immediately cut back. This is just bad. This is not a good intro. Also, this whole video is littered with strange edits like this, where I'm like, and I did these like quick cuts because I was trying to avoid copyright claims, but that was just, it was impossible. I shouldn't have even attempted it. I should have just let the whole clips play, which is what I did in the Season 2 video, and also this Season 3 video. Because they're gonna claim it. They don't care how much cuts you do in a clip, they will claim it.
We then go back to Carly's apartment and we're treated to this tired old boring yarn meme trope that every show uses. If you're gonna do this, please do something original or creative with.
Alright, here's my new take on this. This is, I don't think I should have harped on this that much. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, did it make me laugh uncontrollably when I saw it? No. Is it like a sin? Not really. I don't really think it was worth me bringing up. That's the first thing that I would completely take back in terms of criticism.
Or if they want to get a little spicy and delve into politics a little bit, they could hire a Russian bot farm.
This part kind of makes me cringe. The Russian troll farms, that whole discourse was so outdated by the time this video is released. And like now it's like, if you showed this to like a 17-year-old, they'd be like, what the hell is that? What the hell are you talking about? Let's see, when did this get uploaded? 2022. Yeah, that was probably outdated the second I made that joke in real time, so.
Look how Steph found the nail polish color highly problematic.
I genuinely don't understand what's funny about this. The thing is that it's a squirrel wearing nail polish, but then they say that the nail polish color is the problematic part.
I think this was just, I think this was just a terrible joke, and I shouldn't have given it any time at all. I should have just said this joke sucks and moved on instead of trying to, like, decipher what it meant. This segment is unnecessary and unneeded. I think I should have just said what happens instead of doing this. Because, like, this is... Speaking of overplayed segments, I was bashing the conspiracy board yarn thing earlier. What about this? People do this all the time with, like, the quiz with the obvious answer.
But is actually a part of an app that is, I guess, for prostitutes? I've never really dealt with prostitutes personally, so I'm unfamiliar if there is an app for getting prostitutes.
I bet there is. Let's take a look. Pepper, a dating app for prostitutes and people who want what? I didn't make it. There's no indication as to whether or not this is, like, available still. Let's see. Okay. I've just been sent to a website with an ass, so it does not seem like apps are a thing for prostitution. So there we go.
The reason why this doesn't work in iCarly is because there was no payoff for this happening. Nothing happened because of these events. Spencer didn't even make any attempts to resolve the situation on his own. He did nothing. He just continued to keep being a prostitute.
I'd like to, you know, put a little amendum here on the Always Sunny citation, because I don't know if that actually makes any sense. I don't think that would work on Always Sunny. I think they would have to actually, you know, resolve it, much like they didn't do here. Like, if you just transplanted this plot into an Always Sunny episode, it would not work. So I don't know what I'm talking about.
Engagement, bridal shower, bachelor, bachelorette, rehearsal, dinner, wedding, post-wedding brunch, post-wedding bridal shower, post-bridal shower, wedding, post-dinner brunch.
Spencer,
I do these, like, YouTube poop-esque edits a lot in this video. Well, not a lot. I think I do it maybe like 2 or 3 times, but they don't really fit in with what is going on here, and it doesn't... I mean, they're fun, but I don't do them for the season 2 or 3 videos, so that tells you everything you need to know. Diamond update, I'm done strip mining. I have gotten 100 diamonds from that. Everyone clap.
Also, I'd like to take this moment to just talk about how stupid of a name Alex Xavier is. First of all, I can't even pronounce this name.
This wasn't needed. I didn't need to include this. What does it add to anything? It's not even that funny. I can just say it's a stupid name and move on.
Immediately after Carly leaves, the psychic has an aneurysm and dies.
That's not great.
In one of the reviews for this video, the season 3 video, I made a point that they should have had someone die, and the cast just don't care about it. And this is actually kind of what that is. I completely forgot that this happened, honestly. Yeah, this is basically as close as we get to my idea of them accidentally killing someone or purposefully killing someone and them just not really caring. They are not really frightened by this in any way. They're just kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's just get him out of here. And I guess they didn't really kill him. Like, he just died. So why did I even bother? Why I should have just re-recorded it, because, like, this ruins the whole bit if I look like this now. Like, this is not the end of the video. So what's going on? I didn't think of, like, recording these in the middle, like, in between the intro and then the conclusion. I'm not even committed to the bit that I seem like I'm committed to. So what's going on? Oh, you can go to hell, man. I'm not interested in fighting a pillager raid at the moment, but thank you for the offer.
But I really don't care about that because I don't understand how we got to this point at all. Like, her motivation for doing what she did is unclear. It just happened. I mean, I guess Freddie rejected.
Okay, so I was a little bit unfair in my criticism here because they do explain a little bit of it, and I just kind of brushed over it. So my critique here is not really completely valid, and I think I just recorded the audio without really checking thoroughly, or I might have been skipping around in the episode when I recorded the audio. I did realize it after I had started editing the episode, but I was just too lazy to actually change it. This is way too quiet. I should have made this part of the audio louder. And before you say maybe it's because you are playing Minecraft and you're surrounded by a million cows, even if I wasn't surrounded by a million cows, it's still too quiet, okay?
The web show became something that really wasn't representative of what was on the internet towards the end of iCarly's run. And so I think it would be really interesting to see the iCarly group try and tackle what makes good internet content in this day and age.
What? The iCarly groups makes it sound like they're a paramilitary group that are operating in, like, Minnesota, and they have a compound, and they're like planning on making a cross-country trip to DC to overthrow the Capitol on January 7th, 2025.
Have an episode where Spencer makes a sculpture of a penis. I genuinely don't know what they could do to fix Millicent in my eyes. I don't know what they do.
Wait a second. That came true. That actually kind of happened in season 3. Wow. But I mean, he has the light show. Who would have thought that one of my dreams came true? Holy cow. I gotta add that into the video now. There it is. There's my video on season 1 of iCarly. Alright, we're doing season 2 now. This is the season 2 video. There's probably going to be a lot less wrong with this, a lot less that I have to critique, but in the game this time, I'm going to once again be strip mining in the lower right-hand corner, so that way there's like your little stimulant, you know, it's like your Subway Surfer type thing. And we're going to have a fun little time seeing how many diamonds I gather from this. Alright, first critique. I think I'm way too zoomed in here on myself. I'm not that cool, okay? This is like minor, and I'm not in focus for a majority of this. But I have my camera's autofocus on, so is it really my fault? I don't think so. I think it's my camera's fault for not autofocusing good enough. I do appreciate how quick I actually just get into things this time around instead of dilly-dallying and, you know, detailing my own personal qualms with my own life and whatnot. That's just unnecessary. No one's here for that.
And basically the whole night was orchestrated by Harper. Man, this is like a worse version of the rehearsal.
I like that I have a whole segment in this video about how reference comedy is bad, and then I drop a reference there it's probably gonna be undecipherable in like 5 more years, unless the rehearsal season 2 comes out, and then it's on everyone's minds again. I don't know if the rehearsal has earned that place where it can just be referenced like that. You know, Nathan For You, I think, has earned its place. You can drop references to Nathan For You, and a good chunk of people will get it. The rehearsal? Nah, maybe not.
But who knows, maybe I'm in the minority. Maybe Ricky Martin is a household name and I'm just not in the house. Anyway, Spencer has agreed to help...
That seems to be the case. I think I'm not as familiar with Ricky Martin. So there's my big critique is I didn't know about Ricky Martin, but now I do.
However, there's still 13 minutes left in the episode, so the writers have to pan this plot out by adding another conflict that can be solved in about 1 minute.
I don't know why I keep saying pan this plot out. That's not the correct verbiage for that. Like, what am I saying? It should be span the plot, pad the plot. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I mean, I get it, but I don't know what the correct word is, honestly. I think just padding the plot, I think is what I should have said. Because panning doesn't make any sense.
And the drag queens say their little euphemisms about slay and whatever else they say.
Yes, drag him!
Once again, I think the verbiage here is not correct. I don't think euphemism is the correct thing for me to have said there to describe what was going on, but it was too late. I said the sentence and I didn't want to re-record it, I guess. I was a little lazy, and you know, it is what it is. That's it. I'm going to sleep and I'm going to finish this tomorrow, the next day. I don't know. Who cares? It's a new day, and I'm ready to finish the rest of this.
Emily Ratajkowski wrote a book.
I will, however, give partial credit to this because I did some research, and Emily Ratajkowski is actually the actress who played Gibby's girlfriend.
I don't think I'm pronouncing her name correctly here. I think that, you know, I completely neglected to even do the pronunciation that Harper does in the episode, which is Emily Ratajkowski. I believe that's actually the correct pronunciation, so I don't know why I completely ignored it. I mean, huge mistake, huge mess up on my part. I have a problem with this now because I did originally think of I Fight Shelby Marks when I was watching this episode, but there's not really much comparison here. Like, I don't know why I made it such a big deal. Because the way I talked about it made it seem like perhaps they just lifted the plot from I Fight Shelby Marks and just placed it here and redid it verbatim, but like, that's not the case at all. It's a completely different plot. Is it good? No, but that doesn't mean that it's been copied. It's just a bad plot that also has to do with fighting. That's basically all they have in common, is that they both have to do with fighting. That's it.
That influencer is Sunny Day, who is played by Hannah Stocking.
Her name is not Sunny Day. It is Sunny Johnson. Sunny Day is a character from the Backyard Sports series. So I must have had Backyard Sports on my mind when I recorded that line, because her name is Sunny Johnson, not Sunny Day.
That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and like I kind of inferred...
I should have said implied, like I implied. Inferred is not the correct word to use there. Well, that is, that's the season 2 video. I'm done with that. Yeah, I didn't really have a whole lot to say about that one, especially in comparison with the season 1 video. That was basically a masterpiece if you're gonna compare my critiques. So you heard it here first. My season 2 iCarly review is actually a masterpiece. Thank you very much. And that can go in the Louvre ASAP. I didn't even really finish my strip mining. I only got 15 diamonds. How pathetic is that? It's barely anything. Well, that does appear to be the end of my journey with iCarly. This is it. I don't have anything else to say. And the show's been canceled, so I'm never going to have to watch another episode of iCarly ever again in my whole life. With that being said, I sincerely thank you to those who have watched all 3 of these videos. It's been an honor. It's been an honor making content for you. I know in the last video I said that this iCarly video would not be the next thing that I was working on, and that was kind of true. I mean, I did work on that Beatles video a little bit. I have like a little over 2 pages of script written for it, but the problem with that video is it takes a lot more effort than something like this, where I just sit down and watch an episode and then I'm ranting for like 10 minutes into a microphone straight. You know, the Beatles thing takes research. I'm actually like going and looking at books, I'm reading stuff, I'm reading material, I'm making sure that I'm getting all the information correctly, and then I'm trying to figure out how to present that information in the best way possible. So yeah, there's a lot to that thing, and who knows when it's gonna get finished. I mean, I'm so far away from the finish line on that video, it's crazy. But who knows, maybe now that I have this thing behind me, I can dedicate more time and effort into that, and maybe progress will be picking up on it soon, hopefully. But if you're interested in that project, you can check out my Patreon for $1 a month. It's very cheap, but it might not last long. Supplies limited there. But I plan on doing some other projects in between now and whenever the Beatles thing gets finished. So if you want to see updates for that project and whatever I do next, make sure you check that out. Link will be in the description. And I think that is it. Thank you once again for watching, and goodbye.